Roll call.
Harding. Hug. Hug. Johnson. Melton.
Here.
Rowe. Bagley. Here. Mr. President.
Here. Please rise for the pledge, and then I'll provide opening remarks.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I just had a few brief observations and announcements today. Then we do have a couple of items of business before we start our regular meeting with council members Harding and Rowe. I first want to acknowledge, you may have seen there was a shooting in the last hour and a half at Northwest High School. The police department responded very quickly. We thank them for that. The suspect is in custody. There has been a 15-year-old critically injured and transported to a local hospital. But the scene is secure. Police are on site and working with parents to release their kids. Several schools were on lockdown, but those lockdowns have now been lifted, and there's no further threat to the general public or to those schools at this time. So just wanted to acknowledge that, if you were seeing that on the breaking news channels in the last hour and a half. I also want to acknowledge that I'm wearing an orange tie today because today is Hunger Action Day. And I want to commend the Food Bank of the Heartland for their work in this area. We need to keep in mind that 1 in 8 families in the Midwest and in the metro are food insecure. And that's their mission. They're working on that intently as we speak with a large expansion project. So I encourage you to check out foodbankoftheheartland.org. And if you're so inclined, please help them in that endeavor. I also want to acknowledge the Jolison Art Museum. So within the last hour, the Jolison Art Museum has reopened. We're excited about that. That's a huge asset to our community. It's free right now to go visit and see the new expansion project. We thank the private sector who largely funded that project for adding to that jewel in our community. And I know I look forward to going to see that, hopefully even after our meeting today. My last observation is I hope we're all watching the big debate tonight. And when I say the big debate is number 9 Creighton volleyball going to beat number 5 Nebraska volleyball tonight or not? That game starts at 7. I know lots of folks are going to be watching that, including our household. So that's an important Midwestern activity that has national implications. We all can be seated now, and then I want to recognize, on a more serious matter, and provide condolences to Mayor Stoddard and her family. As you may know, the mayor lost her mother over the weekend. Having lost my mother recently too, I know that's very, very tough. And we wanted to express our condolences to her. And Councilmember Harding is going to have some words on behalf of the City Council for us.
There we go. And perhaps Don should be the one doing this because surely he is viewed as a lot more reverent than I am. But please take a moment to pause and think about this. We are all very different. We have different points of view. We have different wants and needs. But we all do share one thing, at least one thing in common, and that is we all have a mom, or had a mom, someone who brought us into this world. And some moms are still with us, and some moms, like others, have passed. And today we recognize and share in the grief of Mayor Stothert and her family with the passing of her mom, Mildred Wolf. She was a wife, she was a mother, she was a grandmother, and she was a great-grandmother. And let us think of the memories of each of our moms, whether they are with us today or have passed. And now let us please share a moment of silence for Mildred and all of our moms. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Councilman Rowe, I want to recognize you. I know you spoke to a group who's visiting our chambers today, and you want to recognize them at our meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Harding, for those words. Yes, this morning I was privileged to meet a group of students from Eastern Europe today and got to spend a little bit of time talking about city government, and they're spending about a month in the States visiting different places, but they're spending time at UNO in particular, and we're happy to welcome them from Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro, and Serbia. And I just wanted to say one more time, welcome to Omaha, and welcome to the City Council.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your interest in local government. And the last item before we start our regular meeting is to recognize the Omaha Community Playhouse, who's here with us today. It's the 100th year anniversary of the Omaha Community Playhouse, speaking of fantastic gems in our community. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to tell us about what you have going on, and I think you have a performance this Friday where you're going to express the City Council's support in a proclamation.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm Becky Noble. I'm the Executive Director at the Omaha Community Playhouse. And I'll just say that from a humble beginning at 40th and Davenport, when we took over a cow pasture to build our first space, it was given to us by Sarah Jocelyn, to today, 100 years later, the Playhouse is thrilled to be an integral part of this community. We take our responsibility to the community very seriously. And we are grateful to have the support of the City Council and the city for the 10 productions we do a year, which keep us hopping. And opening on Friday of this week is Jersey Boys, so I hope you'll all get your tickets and come and join us.
I'm Yolanda Williams. I'm the Director of Inclusion and Outreach at Omaha Community Playhouse. First, hello to everyone. It's great to see familiar faces, and it's great to be back home. It's been truly a pleasure to be at the Omaha Community Playhouse, and one of the things that I want to impart on the council and guests and those that are watching from home is that the Omaha Community Playhouse is for the entire community. It is theater for the community and by the community, and so I am charged with really looking at the wider Omaha metro area and really making sure that all members of our community know that this is a space that they are welcome in, and we want them to be there so that we can survive another 100 years. So I'm very excited to have the proclamation and being able to share that with our patrons at opening night. And I would also invite all of you, it's a little bit later in the evening, but our opening night celebration is at the Playhouse, 6915 Cass Street, from 10 p.m. to 11:30. We will be celebrating the cast and crew and really just an incredible 100 years and looking forward to 100 more to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for what you do. Welcome back. Madam Clerk.
An affidavit of publication is on file for the pre-council and city council meeting, and a current copy of the Open Meeting Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of legislative chambers.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Omaha City Council. We appreciate having you all here. We look forward to hearing your testimony on our many items. I would encourage you to turn your cell phones off or at least to vibrate as we get started. And if you have any concerns in terms of hearing the proceedings, you can contact our Building Commission representative here for some listening devices. And we also have closed caption in the back of the room.
Item 6, a resolution to approve an adjustment to the revenue estimates of the 2025 budget to increase the property tax levy reduction. A's communication and support.
The public hearing and vote on number 6 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Council members, on each of these budget amendment items, I'll recognize the council member who introduced the item to speak first and then go through our light progressions. And on this particular item, this was an amendment that I submitted. And as you know, every year around this time, we have what we think is going to be the tax certification, and then we get the final certification within the last couple of weeks, and that occurred again this year. And in this case, what occurred was about $1.3 million worth of additional property tax revenue as a result of that process. And what this amendment does is proposes to give that back to taxpayers to increase the proposed tax rate cut in the 2025 budget. So if this is approved, this would be the second year in a row by which we are increasing that property tax rate reduction, and it would take the proposed amount from about 3.28% to about 3.8% reduction in that property tax rate. So I encourage your favorable consideration of this. I do think property tax is a major concern at the state and local levels, and every little bit helps. I will note this item does take 5 votes for approval, so I encourage your consideration of that too. Having said that, the next slide on is Mr. Harding.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to make a floor amendment to this. And while I agree with your reasoning for what you just stated about the reduction in property taxes, and we have a rather large crowd here today representing the firefighters, and in my discussions, I know some of the issues that the firefighters have as some of their priorities, and that was a program successfully, I think successfully implemented, was some cancer screening. And I think the cost of that is somewhere around $1.1 or $1.2 million a year. So I was going to make an amendment to this, if I can, to, instead of reduce the property tax by that amount, which I, again, agree is something that we need to be doing. But I think we should also have some look at our priorities. But instead of doing the property tax, put that into the continued program for cancer screening for firefighters. So I don't know if this is possible, so I'm going to ask City Law if, because it's a different appropriation to a different item other than what was on the agenda. I'm going to ask Law if I can even do that.
Well, and I will second the motion if we're able to do it.
Matt Cusey, Law Department. It's the Law Department's position that that's a substantive, major substantive change to the agenda item number 6 with an entire, it doesn't modify number 6, it's completely erasing agenda item number 6 and replacing it with a completely different item, and that would violate the Open Meetings Act. So it's the Law Department's position that such an amendment at this time is inappropriate.
All right. Something that I'll have to maybe work on and figure out for another funding source at a different time. But I respect the Law Department's opinion on that. And if that's not possible, then I will support the additional tax increase, or tax increase, the additional tax decrease that the citizens of Omaha will be able to enjoy.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
I was next.
Oh, no point of order. Ms. Melton, you're next. Sorry, missed your light.
That's okay.
Shouldn't citizens be able to vote on amendments? At least speak against it?
Larry, sit down. You're out of order.
I think you're
Ms. Melton.
Thank you very much. Well, what the Law Department just told us is that we are not able to do the amendment. Therefore, there's no need for anyone to speak on the amendment. But I want to thank Councilman Harding, because this is something that we have been talking about. And I have to say, it was my biggest concern was that we didn't have the funding for the cancer screenings in the 2025 budget. I think that I was really happy. It sounded like almost all, at least close to 85–90% of the fire department took advantage of the screenings. And I think for some, it was really important. And I think may have even saved a life or let them know that there was some concerns that they need to be watching for that they may not have been watching for before. So although we can't amend the budget at this time for this funding, that we need to decrease and that we are going to decrease the tax levy, I can tell you that one of my biggest priorities is going to be finding funding for that, whether it be grant funding or otherwise. I don't want to see that program go away, and I want to see that opportunity be made to the firefighters every year. And even if it's something where we break it up and it's every 2 years, but there's got to be some screening in between. We've got to have that more than just the average physical for all of our firefighters, because of what all of you face every day that the rest of us don't. And your risk of health problems because of what you do for us as citizens, I think it's extremely important. And I can tell you that's going to be one of my biggest priorities in this year. And hopefully, maybe we can find some funding, some grant money within this year in order to cover those screenings. But it'll be extremely important to have it in our 26 budget. if we can't find those funds in 25, and then make sure we have it in our budget every year going forward. Councilman Harding, I commend that. I wish that that amendment could have gone through. I would be willing to fall on my political sword and not decrease the levy for health screenings for firefighters. With that, President Festerson, I will support the decrease in the levy. And I have to say, we are decreasing the levy, but I am concerned, again, when we're talking about finding funds, although the legislature gave us an exception for public safety, we are now going to be capped at 0% increase in funds. So in order to do anything, even if it's for public safety, it appears to me that we'll have to increase taxes or increase the levy moving forward, which I don't know that currently the taxpayers are going to want us to do. So it's going to be very important that we do find funding, that we apply for grants, and that we get some of that grant funding and make that our priority, especially when it comes to the firefighters. So you have my commitment that I will be doing so. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. This question speaks to the benefits that the firefighters have, health benefits. Is there anyone here that can answer my question today?
Can't hear you.
So, you can't hear me? I don't operate the microphone. I'm sorry, but that's outside of my wheelhouse.
Press the button again, see if that works.
There you go. Is there anyone here that can answer the question regarding firefighters' benefits, please?
Ma'am, I can give it a shot depending on what the question is.
Our current benefit package.
Trevor Towie, 6005 Grover Street.
Our current benefit package, does it not include a screening for cancer?
Yeah, that's correct. It does not. Any firefighter can go and get a normal physical. Because of some of the things that we're subjected to, your normal insurance won't necessarily cover certain screenings. It's always determined on your age, necessarily. We know that we require additional screenings because of the things we're subjected to. Therefore, insurance doesn't always cover it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next question, is there a way for us to shop around and look at other insurance companies that do include that as a benefit?
So as the firefighters, we operate our own healthcare trust. And in doing so, we often are looking for direct contracts with healthcare facilities that will provide the certain physicals that we need. The reference that your colleagues made to providing the healthcare screenings is a program that we had last year, and we partnered with the fire department and Think Healthcare to provide a comprehensive healthcare and cancer screening to every firefighter. And we're looking to do something similar to that again. I'm working with both those agencies as well as some outside sourcing that can hopefully drive that price point down and get to a place where we can agree to make that investment and provide the physicals and the healthcare screenings that firefighters need.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, and I would just add, we did discuss this in Public Safety Committee meeting this morning together with the chief, and we're all in agreement. This is very important, and we did discuss some possibilities in terms of funding this morning that we look forward to pursuing as well. There are no further lights. We need a motion and a second on the property tax rate reduction.
Motion to approve.
Motion and a second. No further lights. Roll call.
Harding.
Yes.
Hug.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Council members, without objection, Mr. Hug, I think, would prefer to have number 7 moved down on the order of the agenda. Is that true?
Yes, please.
As the introducer, I would suggest we move that back down to after number 11, without objection.
Could we, thank you.
If that's not a problem with the council members, I think it's the reason is he is expecting a supporter to be here to speak to it who's not here yet. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So without objection, we'll do that and move to the next item, which is number 8.
Item 8, a resolution to approve a revision to the 2025 budget to increase the general fund and parks by $50,000 for the Autumn Heights subdivision and tree removals.
Public hearing and vote on number 8 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. Okay, okay. I was thinking my microphone wasn't working. Thought it was spreading. All right. The reason I did this last year, I appropriated the $50,000 to parks to clean up Willowwood. Willowwood is a neighborhood with large common areas that over time just needed an extra boost to maintenance. It just got to the point where our parks department couldn't take care of it. And they did. Our parks department came in, hired a contractor, actually used GIS, flew over all of the common grounds, set up a plan, and they attacked it, and they did a great job. And it was, I mean, literally probably at least 10 years kind of overdue. So this year I looked at it. Right now we don't have any more funding at this time for tree removal. We're looking to get some more funding, and then we got hit with the hurricane storm, basically, that took out all these trees. So at this point in time, our parks department needs some additional assistance in tree removal. And so I'm appropriating an additional $50,000 to the parks department so that they can try and get caught up on the tree removal in our parks, in our common areas. And it's also, there's just some improvements such as sand and things that Autumn Heights Park is a great little park, and they just need some improvements in there as well. But I am giving the department head, Matt Kalsovich, we're gonna be discussing where the areas are that are most needed. And so I'm asking for your support to appropriate just an additional $50,000 to our parks department.
Thank you. I don't see any further lights. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Harding.
Yes.
Hug.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 9, a resolution to approve a revision to the 2025 budget to increase the general fund and public works by $50,000 and to revise the capital improvement plan for the North Saddle Creek Business Improvement District Streetscape Project.
Public hearing and vote on number 9 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents?
Luis Jimenez, 2709 Dewey Avenue. Hello, council members. I've been participating in the budget process this year, and I think Mr. Stubbe struck out when he spoke about the open meetings law. The whole city knows that you're doing budget amendments today, so there's really no need for a notice if you're going to do any kind of amendment. I oppose this because we need budgeting integrity in the process. I don't believe Mayor Stother has provided that year after year. The budget for Omaha streets is anemic. I'm talking about repairing standard streets. And I don't think that this amendment helps just day-to-day maintenance of the streets. We need to support the taxpayers by repairing the streets that they pay for. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents?
Larry Storr, 5115 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. I'm opposed because I don't see anything being done what is being done is kind of suspicious to me. I drive that area quite often, sometimes 3 or 4 times a day. And that whole area in there, not just that small stretch of North Saddle Creek, is a mess. I don't see the city doing anything about it. The homeless, the streets, neighboring zones, even the apartment buildings. But on North Saddle Creek Drive, you can go up on one side of the street, something's getting done. On the other side of the street, it is not. There are businesses that all of a sudden have closed their doors on one side of the street, but not on the other. And there are some junkyards doing automobile repair or whatever on one side of the street. Nothing's being done with them. A scrap metal place, nothing's being done with them. Coffee shop closed. Car wash closed. What's next? The business around the turnaround roundabout that doesn't really work very well, but nothing on that south side of the street. So if you're not going to do it right by blighting it, I think that's the next step. You're probably going to blight it and build up more new high-rises so you can't see the scout. But $50,000 isn't going to be enough. That might cover striping the street, the curbs. That's about it. But what about all of the junk in that area? This is not the only part of Omaha where that needs to be clarified. Business Improvement District has not been explained to this public. What does that mean? Flower pots? That's not going to cover up the mess. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Council members, this is an item that I introduced. It is part of a $6 million renovation of the North Saddle Creek Business District that is well underway. We're on track with all of our public meetings being very positive. A zoning overlay meeting discussed just last week with all neighborhood residents and businesses. We've raised over $3 million in private funds to match these city funds to have it be constructed spring of 2025. So this just assures that occurs, and I would encourage your favorable consideration of this item.
Second.
There's a motion, a second to approve. Roll call.
Harding. Yes. Hug. Yes. Johnson. Yes. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Yes. Bagley. Aye. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
And I will note, council members, I failed to mention this amended both the budget and the capital improvement program, so that'll be something we must be attentive to in an item that comes later on the agenda in terms of approving the capital improvement plan. I'll talk about that at that point. Next item.
Item 10, a resolution to approve a revision to the 2025 budget to increase the general fund community service programs by $40,000 for the Nebraska Center for Workforce Development and Education and $10,000 for the Omaha Irish Cultural Center.
The public hearing and vote on number 10 is today. Proponents, please.
My name is Ed Fogarty. I'm president of the Omaha Irish Cultural Center. We've been around for about 15 years. In the last few years, we've been like a train leaving the station. We're committed to try and build a physical home for our organization that can help in the outreach with all Irish Omaha organizations. We've been heavily into programs for the last several years. In the last year that I've been the president, we've brought in the Young Wolf Tones, an Irish folk group. We brought in Cadan not too long ago, 4 Italians by chance, but they had the world's greatest banjo player, an Irishman. Really wonderful evenings we've also had, and it's expanding this year, already funded, an Irish Film Festival. We've done that at Benson Theater and had 2 or 3 major programs at Benson Theater over the last year and a half. We also have an annual honors brunch at St. Patrick's Day, in which we honor an Omaha Irish person, big in government. It can be a politician or a public servant, big in Omaha business, or a humanitarian award that's named after Ed Flanagan. But anyway, we thank you for this consideration. Don't worry, your money will be well used. It will bring some toe tapping on our music events. I want to end with something kind of odd. Jambalaya, crawfish pie, a Philly gumbo. They're going to be a big time down on the bayou. Now that was it when these Italians and the Irishmen got together. They did some folk songs. You thought they'd be a bunch of Irish folk songs. Well, they put that one into the end of their program, and you should have heard this Italian heavy accent doing "There'll be a big time on the bayou." But we hope to bring a lot of goodwill to Omaha through our efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents on number 10?
Louis Jimenez, 2709 Dewey Avenue. I look forward to these kinds of amendments every year, and I understand there's going to be a floor amendment to this. But I just want to clarify that I understand you guys are bringing these amendments. So my previous comments about the budgeting process should withstand that fact. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents?
Vecchio, 6001 Grover Street.
Chris, you're a proponent, right?
A proponent, yeah, but I was late getting here, so I apologize.
Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask for opponents first, but then
Okay.
I'll call you and give you a chance to speak, okay?
Okay.
Are there any other opponents to number 10? Seeing none, public hearing's closed. Mr. Vecchio, you're recognized for some remarks.
Okay. I appreciate council members you here today. Pete, you started off with some of the issues that we face at the Nebraska Center with some of our participants, that being food insecurity. You know, part of the funding for what we're asking for in the 40,000 goes probably at the heels of that, and that is the transportation challenges that we have encountered with the participants that we mentor at the Nebraska Center. And transportation should be looked at as anything to do with any of the programming options that we have in the evening for our participants. It involves any of the court order proceedings, court hearings, any of the court orders that they have to have transportation to and from, along with any employment, job interviews, and then hopefully to gainful employment or their job site. And that's probably one of the biggest challenges we continually face, along with what I mentioned earlier and what President Festerson said about food insecurity, housing, and of course transportation is right there. So this would allow us to continue those services and provide transportation to and from the activities involved with that. The other involves industry certifications. And you know, the participants that we mentor are trying to get them involved in the skilled trade positions, and to increase their employability or their chances of employability and their skill set, we offer these types of certifications through the National Safety Council, where we have OSHA 10 training, CPR, first aid, forklift training, aerial training, which really does help increase the skill sets or upskill some of the ones that have these skills itself to really increase the employability or the opportunity for employability. So we believe that this gives them a leg up against the competition when we have others coming in. They're trying to challenge the opportunity that they have for really nailing down a job interview. And the last would be the essentials. I call it backpack essentials, where, you know, when they come to us, they don't have a lot of possessions, or they don't have the necessary attire that you would think that what one would want to gain suitable employment. So in these backpacks, we offer, T-shirts, a polo, a belt, a wallet. Most don't have wallets. a planner that helps them. Our point in the planner, really, everybody kind of uses a phone anymore, and most of them don't have a phone, but we look at that as prioritization of skills, helping them stay organized, so we put that in there, along with seasonal items as far as hats and beanies, socks, as far as for those that actually have to wear boots for certain lines of employment with the skilled trade. So with the funding that we proposed here, we're hoping that we can continue to look for your support, and that's what it'll be utilized for.
Great, thank you. Okay, Mr. Begley, I see you have your light on, and I do know we have a floor amendment that's been distributed to folks that I think you'll recognize Councilmember Johnson to address. Yes.
Thanks, Mr. President. I'll recognize Councilmember Johnson for a floor amendment.
Okay.
Thank you. Oh, that's okay. I'm good. The amendment before us is to provide funding to Basic Hope Foundation. I'm in full support of the critical work of Basic Hope Foundation in providing much needed mental health services to our community, particularly to those facing the challenges of poverty. Access to mental health care should not be a luxury, but a fundamental right for everyone, regardless of their financial situation. In communities where poverty is prevalent, mental health issues often go untreated, further deepening the cycle of hardship. Basic Hope Foundation has been a lifeline offering compassionate, professional care to those who need it most, helping individuals heal and empowering them to thrive. By securing funding for this organization, we are not just investing in mental health care, we're investing in the overall well-being, stability, and future success of our community. I urge decision makers to prioritize this essential service and ensure that no one else or no one is left behind in their time of need. So again, I encourage this body to make the appropriate choice of helping in this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for clarity purposes, this will be an additional $50,000 to the Basic Hope Foundation, right?
That would be correct.
Thank you. Is there a motion on that?
Mr. President, is this a motion on the floor amendment, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve the floor amendment.
Second.
There's a motion and a second on that amendment. Roll call.
Harding.
Yes.
Hug.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Bagley.
Aye.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
And now the floor is Mr. Begley's to address the overall item as discussed.
Thanks for your guidance, Mr. President, as always. Good afternoon. Can I have Mr. Fogarty come up for 1 minute, please?
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Fogarty, and thanks for wearing your Creighton shirt, who you're rooting for tonight in the game. So I appreciate.
You know who I'm rooting for.
I just wanted to thank you for all the work you've done with the work for the Omaha Irish Cultural Center and your investment of time in that. I've attended some of those events, and it really is a beautiful thing for the community that's appreciated. And I know you wanted to get it growing 15 years ago when it started, but I think it's really taken off, is evident by the things you described in the recent events. I was in Chicago a couple weeks ago, and I was unable to attend the one that you had that Thursday night before Labor Day, but I'm glad to support this, and I'm looking forward to future events. And again, thank you for all the work you've done for this organization.
And thank you to the City Council for considering us. Thank you, Mr. Baker.
In a second, Mr. Vecchio, if you can come up, please. Thanks for coming down today and for the work for the Nebraska Center for Workforce Development and Education. With the room full of people here and people out listening today, you did a great job of describing the simple things that people in this room take for granted. We can drive a car to our jobs, we have employment, we can take care of our families. What the Nebraska Center for Workforce Development and Education does is it connects people with the backpack of the tools you described, the simple basic necessities, getting to a job site, helping with interviews, the building trades. We talk about the skilled trades, and today it's on the news all the time. The Nebraska Center is evident on the work that is done in the community to connect people that might not otherwise have a skill set to learn to get these great jobs in the community. We look around Omaha, there's cranes and construction everywhere. It's a booming town. And with the building trades and the work that the Nebraska Center does, I just want to thank everybody there, and I'm really glad to support this once again, because I've seen firsthand the impacts on people's lives to get them a paycheck. You know, they talk about pull your bootstraps up and go to work. Well, this organization helps men and women do that. So again, I thank the Nebraska Center for Workforce Development and Education, and I'm glad to make this this resolution today for the $40,000 to support your organization.
Thank you, Councilman Begley. Thank you all, Councilman, for your time today.
And is that a motion as
Motion
amended?
to approve, yes. Thank
As
you.
amended?
As amended.
Yep. Motion and a second. No further lights. Roll call.
Harding. Hug. Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 11, a resolution to approve a revision to the 2025 budget to increase the general fund in Public Works by $100,000 for temporary speed feedback signs.
Public hearing and vote on number 11 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Mr. Rowe, looks like you're first.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to thank Mr. Harding. Councilmember Harding and I worked together to put this resolution together. When I was meeting with Val McPherson and the Bold Fellowship group this morning, there were some questions that came up, and one of them had to do with, you know, what do you get the most inquiries about from your constituents? And sure, we get, you know, weeds in the litter, that's a big one. Potholes are a big one. But you know, another one is speed and traffic through our neighborhood streets. And so what our hope is that by deploying these devices, it's that, and you're all familiar with them, it's that little radar signal that tells you when you're going over 25 miles an hour or whatever the speed limit is. And it's just a reminder when you're going down one of those neighborhood streets to pay attention and check your speed. And we have those in our inventory, but we felt like we needed more to deploy throughout the whole city, not just District 5 and District 6, but throughout the whole city. And so that's why we propose this amendment today.
Thank you. Mr. Harding.
Thanks, Mr. President. As Don said, this is certainly one of the kinds of calls we get from a lot of constituents, and we have a limited number of these today, and I think it's basically 4, and they have to be placed in tandem. So it was, and now with Vision Zero, there's probably less of an ability for us in our neighborhoods to deploy these, and that they would go toward mostly for Vision Zero projects. And so we thought it was important to take this action, and we will be working with the Public Works Department and the Mayor's office to figure out a plan how these get deployed and fully utilized as we go forward. Because when I was doing my investigation, I think these units usually cost anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000. So with $100,000 devoted to this program, we think we can have an impact on that. And I wanted to just kind of back that up by saying that last year, part of my kind of other budgetary accounts amendments to the budget was to Drive 25, Keep Kids Alive. So safety in our neighborhood streets is a really important, something that's really important to me, and I wanted to make sure that We continued those efforts to make our neighborhood streets stay safe, so our kids can play in their neighborhoods and not have to have some of these concerns. So I would appreciate your favorable consideration on this program.
Thank you. I don't see any further lights. Is there a motion? Motion and a second. Roll call.
Harding. Hug. Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Council members will now return to item number 7.
Item 7, a resolution to approve a revision to the 2025 budget to increase the general fund and community service programs by $50,000 for the Douglas County Sheriff's Office Youth and Family Engagement Program.
Public hearing and vote on number 7 is today. Proponents, please.
Thank you very much. Douglas County Sheriff Aaron Hansen. I want to thank the City Council and Councilman Hugg for this opportunity to discuss this, what I think will be a very impactful position within not only county government, but one that will affect in a positive way city government, state government, and any system point in which young people or juveniles travel. In the summer of 2023, the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, in partnership with Avenue Scholars and Metro Community College, we put on 2 credentialing courses. There was a group of 7 youth in each one. They were ages 17 to 21 years of age. And the job was the goal was to get them out of this 4-week credentialing college with either a micro-credential or a marketable job skill. One was cell phone repair, mobile device repair, and the second was a construction trade primer. We did successfully graduate 14 of those young people through the course, but what we found in that pilot project was there was not enough case management on the front end nor on the back end to make sure that these young people, although they did successfully pass the coursework, that they were prepared to successfully engage in the coursework, and then upon graduation, be prepared to actually integrate into the job market, into a job field, and maintain that job. So as we had the debrief efforts from that pilot project, Metro Community College spoke with me, President Schmazel, and said, what we really need is someone working for the Sheriff's Office who touches all these system points, whether it's the school districts, juvenile probation, adult probation, parole, adult correction, juvenile DCYC, someone to ensure that all of these different stakeholders, almost like a problem-solving court model, are wrapping around these youth and making sure that they're ready to be immersed in this micro-credentialing, which, by the way, it results in lucrative salaries, and then are ready to stay employed and maintain a lifestyle which is pro-employment once they graduate. Luckily, City Councilman Hugg had indicated that he had an idea on how it could be partially funded. Metro Community College was gracious enough. President Schmazel said whatever front-end funding from the city we can find, they're willing to complete the funding for a full-time position, civilian position. And then obviously my office would handle all the other ancillary issues, vehicles, computers, supervision, and other type of functions. I have high hopes that although this is yet another pilot for 1 year, I do believe that this is a model that can truly help disrupt cycles of poverty, and by extension will not only help juveniles that touch county government, but also the various areas of city government, our public school systems, diversion. I'm very, very hopeful that this enhanced form of case management in dealing with these young people on a case-by-case basis, I think we will have a real opportunity to connect them with successful trades. I'll finally add this. Metro Community College does have $250,000 set aside for training for high-risk young adults, high-risk youth that fall into this category. It's just a matter of getting them into that training. That's what this position will aim to do, and I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Hugg, you're recognized.
Sheriff Hansen, don't get too far.
Sheriff Aaron Hansen, 3601 North 156.
I just want to have you answer, for the benefit of everybody that's here, to hear what I've heard for the past several months. And it's the intent to place individuals that may have been forced to leave OPS school system or other school systems, individuals that may be already in the system, so to speak, for some criminal offense, and to try to funnel those individuals into this program has a diversion to their current path that they're on. But it's not just to stick them in there, it's to prepare them and to make sure that they have this, that their mind is in the right place, that they understand they're getting an opportunity. Am I misspeaking here?
No, you're nailing it. That's exactly the goal. But then also, if you are a part of the system, if you are involved in supervision of these young people, you better be ready for some sunlight as well, because we're going to want to make sure that everyone involved in the system understands that they have to do their part to make sure, especially for system-involved youth, that we have a plan. How will this youth get to the training? Will they get 8 hours of non-medicated sleep the night before the training? Who's going to make sure, along with this coach, mentor, this family outreach specialist, who's going to also make sure that these individuals are behaving while in the training? Because they're not going to be in their own specialized groups. They're going to be integrated in with traditional MCC students, which actually the data shows you, the studies show you, that's the best way to get positive results out of high-risk, middle-risk kids or trending kids. You don't put them in with other high-risk kids if you integrate them with other average kids that are not high-risk, mid-risk, then you'll end up, they'll assimilate to those groups of kids better. And so not only will this position help to take every kid case by case and say, okay, are you ready to take this micro-credentialing? And we're not going to shoehorn you into one type of micro-credentialing. We're going to give you real ownership on the way your life rolls out. But we're going to make sure they get plugged in when they're ready. And part of them being ready is this mentor making sure that everyone else around them is ready, and then making sure that they're successful. We're not just going to high five and check a box once they graduate. We're going to make sure they actually integrate into the workforce successfully as well.
Okay, thank you. Anything else you want to say before I'll let you go leave?
Thanks for letting me leave. I just appreciate this. I think that this will, everything we learned from Pilot Project 1, we can use to improve for this project number 2. And I have all the hopes in the world that we will truly find a way to disrupt cycles of poverty and crime in our community.
Thank you, Sheriff Hansen.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
There's a motion to approve and a second. Roll call.
Harding.
Yes.
Hug.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 12, a resolution that should the city not receive the SAFER grant to fund 18 additional firefighters in the 2025 budget, that $1.2 million will be appropriated from other sources.
Public hearing and vote on number 12 is today. Proponents, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. I'm Trevor Towie. I'm President, Omaha Professional Firefighters, 6005 Grover Street. I'll first start my comments by thanking the council members for your earlier remarks on our cancer screenings and your commitment to that. It's not pertinent to this amendment, but I do appreciate your comments and your support. I look forward to working with all of you on that effort. Next, I want to thank you, Mr. President, for offering this amendment. I believe this is an important step forward in addressing our staffing needs, but I'd be remiss if I didn't also thank Mayor Stothert and Chief Bossman for their efforts in trying to find additional funding for those same needs. I believe we're on the same page and we're on the same path there. It's just how do we get to the end game? I know you all recall, because I've been here before, I've talked with many of you. You've heard my commitment to advocating for more staffing for the fire department. I believe it's important. I've testified in this forum to the same effect. And I've also said that I'm proud to live in the city that we live in. I'm proud to see that Omaha is a growing, thriving city that, quite frankly, is in the best position financially that maybe we've ever been in. And that's a good thing. But what I've also said is that a successful city that's growing and thriving also must grow their public service and emergency service response. If we're not doing that, then we're failing to address the needs of our citizens, in my opinion. And I know you've heard me say this before. I don't think we're there. As our population grows, as our call volume continues to increase, our staffing has been left behind. And I have numbers on that, and I'm not here to dispute the numbers, but over the 15 years, our call volume has increased 55%. Our staffing has increased 6%. It's not apples to apples. But because of that, I believe our city and our department did the appropriate thing. They did this. They applied for the SAFER grant. A SAFER grant that's going to include and provide staffing for 18 additional firefighters. If it's okay with you, Mr. President, I have copies for everybody.
Yep.
I think that's important information to understand that we both agree that there's a need here. And I'm going to quote some of the areas later, but I'm glad that this application was submitted. I encouraged it to be submitted. I helped them with the effort, and I hope we get it. Because what I know is since 2021, myself and many of the firefighters behind me have heard that we're going to reinstate Engine 2 in our downtown fire station. The engine that was there over a decade ago, but was removed because of budget cuts, we were going to reinstate that. Well, it didn't happen. And in 2022, we were told that we were going to get a grant and we were going to put it in service. That didn't happen either. In 2023, we applied for a grant with that same effort in mind. Put Engine 2 back in service with the firefighters and allow for enough staff to place an additional medic unit in Northwest Omaha. That grant was rejected. And here we are again in 2024. We've submitted that same effort again. We got to have some backup plans. We got to have some commitment that if that grant's not received, we're going to prioritize public safety in this town. And I got to say, what has happened, all those things that didn't happen, that Engine 2 didn't get put back in service, but meanwhile, our call volumes keep going up. And our call volume has went up 5.2% every year, and we're expected to make 80,000 emergency calls in 2025. These aren't my numbers. These are numbers that are included in that grant. We need to address the issue, and we need to prioritize it and codify it. And that's all this amendment does. I agree with most everything in here. And I agree with it because the need exists. The guys behind me, many of them work downtown at this fire station. 20 runs a day is not uncommon, but it's not sustainable, it's not healthy, and quite frankly, every fire station that I go in, that's the number one concern that I hear. That's not an exaggeration. I wish all of them would come up and tell you this, but they're not going to. I agree with everything in this grant because of what it says. And when asked why we need additional staffing, it says, and I quote, "The steady increase in call volume has had a substantial impact on both our crews and our service delivery. Not only has this impacted the mental and physical well-being of our crews, but it has impacted the service we provide to our community and our ability to achieve the standards outlined in NFPA 1710. Adding an additional engine to serve in Battalion 1 and, which is downtown Omaha, and an additional medic unit to serve in Battalion 7, which is Northwest Omaha, would allow us to continue to achieve the highest level of service delivery possible while also directly supporting and positively impacting our first responders. As you can see, this comes from the grant that I offered you for review, and it's my sentiments too. We are on the same page here. What I'm asking for, and this is why I support this amendment, and I appreciate President Festus for bringing it forward, it codifies the need. We need a backup plan. In my business, we have a backup plan. We got SOPs. We know that if we get a house fire or we get this type of a run, we know how to respond to that, but every company officer knows if things don't go the way it's prescribed to go, we got a backup plan. That's all I'm asking for. I want some commitments. These members want some commitments to know that help is on their way. They need to know that there's going to be additional companies put in service so they don't have to make 20 runs per shift. And for that reason, I support this amendment. I appreciate your time. I appreciate all of the conversation that I've had with each one of you this week. I appreciate your favorable consideration, and I hope that we will prioritize public safety in Omaha. Thank you.
Thank you. And as Mr. Towie suggested, I don't think everyone here in a red shirt's testifying, but I can suffice to say you're probably here as proponents, so if you just want to raise your hand if you're a proponent and don't intend to speak. All right. Thank you. Now, other proponents who intend to speak.
Luis Jimenez, 2709 Dewey Avenue. I support this resolution. It's not an amendment to the budget. It's a resolution. I think we would all benefit if you can clarify which recipients of funds have to apply for a grant with the mayor once all these amendments are approved. I think that would be some good housekeeping. Or you can send them a letter so that they don't miss out on the funding that you are awarding them. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, 68132. I'm for this as well as what comments that Sheriff made. We cannot scrimp in the area of public safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents today?
Hello, Kimara Snipes, KIMARA SNIPES. My address is 1729 South 12th Street. My condolences to the mayor. That is something we all have in common. And something else that we all have in common is that we all live in neighborhoods. As someone who has lived in a racially and ethnically concentrated area of poverty, the fire department is often the first one to show up. And so I stand in support of this myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents?
Good afternoon, Fire Chief Kathy Bosman, 1516 Jackson. Thank you, President Festerson and members of the City Council. I will begin by stating the Omaha Fire Department is budgeted and staffed appropriately for 2025. It is my intention as Fire Chief to find the most fiscally responsible way to grow the department. This is a collaborative relationship between fire management, the mayor's office, and the finance department to fund and staff the department at our target of $142 million, which includes 2 recruit classes scheduled to occur this year. We will be having a lateral class and a traditional fire academy within the next 8 to 9 weeks. Before I touch on details of the SAFER grant, let me begin by stating that Mayor Stothert has demonstrated her dedication to public safety throughout her years as mayor. And as members of the City Council, you also have played a role in the success of our department. For example, Mayor Stothert has increased our budget from $83 million in 2013 to $142 million in 2025. In 2022, Mayor Stothert approved and funded the unprecedented apparatus replacement plan, which provides new and standardized fire engines, trucks, and medic units. And over the course of the agreement, the city will spend $43 million so that our frontline apparatus are up to date and in good condition. This includes the arrival of 1 rescue rig later this year, plus 2 engines, 2 medic units, and 1 truck that will arrive in 2025. Mayor Stothert has added 55 sworn positions during her time as mayor. And OFD, if we are not awarded the SAFER grant this year, the mayor has committed to adding 18 positions in the 2026 budget, which we will begin working on in just a few short months. We are actively working to purchase land for a new fire station in the northwest corner of Omaha, which would ultimately add additional sworn positions above and beyond those listed in this resolution. The plan for growth is in place, and the mayor has been supportive of my staffing plan. As we worked through the 2025 budget cycle preparation, it became clear that applying for the SAFER grant was a fiscally responsible way to add 18 positions in 2025. From a financial and business perspective, the grant opportunity makes sense. The SAFER grant provides federal dollars to fund the requested positions for 3 years before those positions are absorbed into our budget. Again, if the SAFER grant is not awarded, the mayor has added or committed to adding those positions to the 2026 budget. We should do nothing at this time that jeopardizes our SAFER grant application, as those are currently pending, and I believe this resolution does jeopardize the SAFER grant. Our personnel, as you can see behind me, they are our greatest asset. I am proud of the women and men of the Omaha Fire Department. They provide an incredible service to the citizens every day, and the citizens can rest assured that we will always respond to their emergencies. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents today?
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the City Council, Thomas Warren, Chief of Staff, Mayor's Office. I'm here on behalf of Mayor Stothert. As has been mentioned, her mother passed this weekend. We ask that you continue to keep her and her family in your thoughts and prayers. Otherwise, she would be here. You did receive a letter. I'd like to read it into the record from Mayor Stothert. But before I start, I just want to also reiterate the fact that Mayor Stothert does place a very high priority on public safety. And she is very proud of the Omaha Fire Department, the men and women, the service that they provide, and we do feel that they provide excellent service to the citizens of the city of Omaha. So this letter was dated September 9th, 2024. It makes reference to the fact that back in June, each of you were briefed on our recommended 2025 budget. The $142.4 million Omaha Fire Department budget was developed in cooperation with Chief Bossman and appropriated the funds and staffs the Omaha Fire Department for 2025. It was explained to each of you that in the event that we do not receive the SAFER grant, Mayor Stothert will add 18 firefighters to the 2026 budget. This is a commitment that has already been made to you, Chief Bossman, and to Local 385 President Trevor Towie. Local 385's public campaign suggesting that OFD is understaffed, underfunded, is unwarranted, and not truthful. At a news conference on April 10th of this year, 2024, Mr. Towie and Mayor Stothert announced a contract agreement with Local 385. In a news release that same day, Mr. Towie stated, and I quote, "This tentative agreement provides fair compensation, corrects critical retirement benefits, and addresses the increasing workload of Omaha paramedics and firefighters. It is a reasonable investment for public safety and for the firefighters who provide it," said Local 385 President Towie. "I am confident we have addressed all the issues important to firefighters." Mayor Stothard is very proud of the steps that she has taken to improve the fire department staffing, increases the annual budget, and implemented the unprecedented $43 million apparatus replacement plan that was created in 2022. As has been mentioned, since she has been mayor, she has increased the Omaha Fire Department budget from $83.8 million in 2013 to $142.4 million in 2025. The number of budgeted firefighters has increased from 632 in 2014 to what was budgeted 687 in 2025. And the apparatus removed from service by the previous administration is now back in service. Truck 53, also Medics 78, Medic 2, and Medic 25. As Chief Bossman mentioned, we feel that the budget resolution that you are considering will jeopardize significantly the SAFER grant application. The resolution states that the council will appropriate $1.2 million from other sources if we don't receive the grant. There are two ways to do that: reduce the budget allocation from other city departments or raise our levy. Mayor Stothard will not support raising taxes, as it seems inconsistent that you would consider this as an option since you just voted to reduce the levy from our recommended 3.3% to 3.8%. Cutting another department would certainly have an impact. In a meeting last Friday, Mr. Towery suggested that she take money from the Omaha Police Department since they are not at full strength. She will not support that option either, and I doubt that you will. It was also suggested that we take $1.2 million from the cash reserve. This would violate our city charter. We must also consider the requirements of LB 34, the cap on city spending recently passed by the legislature. Even with the public safety exemption, we can only exceed the cap if we raise property taxes to pay for the additional firefighters rather than wait until 2026. Mayor Stothard feels that the resolution is ill-advised for these reasons, and she reiterates that it's the responsibility of Chief Bossman and the management of Omaha Fire Department to determine the appropriate staffing levels. Thank you, and I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Any other opponents today? Seeing none, public hearings closed. Council members, as the introducer of this measure, I'll have my remarks first, and then we'll see if there's other lights. I want to thank, first of all, the firefighters for being here today, including the junior firefighter in the back there. We appreciate all that you do for our city. We appreciate your service, and I agree with what I see there. Omaha needs firefighters. And I appreciate President Towery bringing this to our attention. And it's certainly no disrespect to Chief Bossman in our conversations about this. Of course, she'd like to see a strong fire department and make sure we have the resources that we need to run effectively and to protect public safety. But it is an acknowledgement of a budget concern that I frequently do have when it comes to public safety, which talks about budgeting and authorized strength versus actual. We have a major situation in the police department in that respect right now, and have for several years, where we budget authorized strength, but in reality, we're nowhere near that authorized strength in our actual numbers. And I'm concerned that could be the case here in 2025 when we talk about the fire budget, because the proposed budget, as has been mentioned, authorizes 687 firefighters, but it's dependent upon receiving the SAFER grant to achieve that number, which would add 18 firefighters to that total. So like everyone, I hope that grant does come through, and I'm glad we applied for it, and I appreciate all those that were involved in putting that together. But it's been 2 years now that we've tried that unsuccessfully, and I'm concerned what would occur if that does not happen again this year. My understanding is from our conversations this morning that about 2/3 of that SAFER grant funding has now been awarded throughout the country. And with the exception of a small community in Missouri, no community in the Midwest has yet to receive that. So I don't know if that's good or bad for our application, but it does sound a bit concerning. And so I think having some kind of contingency in mind or some kind of commitment in mind is appropriate. And I think it is warranted. As we heard, call volumes are up. Staffing has not kept up with those call volumes. The additional 18 firefighters could put additional current rigs into place right now and then prepare us for the proposed Station 70 in Northwest Omaha in 2026. And it's my concern there's a timing issue there as well, that should that station be prepared in spring of 2026, and that's what the budget says, if we don't have some kind of additional classes in 2025, these 18 firefighters specifically, how are we going to staff that station when it does open in spring of 2026 if we're waiting to 2026 to address this item? So that's part of my rationale for wanting to introduce this today. I do also want to address the issue of the possibility of, or the perception of supplanting, or the possibility of diminishing our chances for the grant. None of us want to do that, of course. So in my conversations with the law department, and Mr. Indabosh in particular, who drafted this resolution, I asked him to draft it in a way that we felt would not cause that situation. It would not diminish our chances for the grant, and I think this does this. And that's why this resolution does not actually amend the budget, but it does confirm and reaffirm our support that should the budget, or should the grant not come through, we're committed to finding some way to address this class in 2025, which I think is very important to do. And there's more than just two ways to do that. It doesn't have to be a tax increase. It doesn't have to be cutting a different department. In all likelihood, it might be from increased sales tax revenues. We've had $8 to $10 million carryovers every year for the last 5-6 years. They give us some flexibility to address things like this along the way. But it would also not be against the city charter should we need to access the cash reserve. The cash reserve is there expressly for things that include the unanticipated loss of revenue. And certainly not getting the grant would be an unanticipated loss of revenue, because that is budgeted right now. So there are options should this not come to fruition. And all we're saying today is we're committed to those options in 2025, and can revisit that in early 2025 to get this moving in some fashion if we had to. So I'll end my remarks there at this point, but may have additional ones depending upon remarks, and if Mr. Talley feels he needs to add anything additional to what I said. So at this point, I'll recognize Mr. Begley.
Thanks, Mr. President. Thanks, everybody, for being here today. I got a couple questions for Chief Bossman. Good afternoon, Chief.
Good afternoon.
Related to the SAFER grants, so walk me through the last 3 years in respect to those grants. In 2022, did we apply for the grants in 2022?
I believe that was the year that no application was submitted.
Okay.
And we applied in 2023 and did not receive the grant award.
Okay. And when were you notified in 2023? If my understanding and research in this, I think they make a decision by the end of September or early October. Is that correct?
They start awarding the grants in September. We did not hear last year until later into the fall. It was end of October, early November, I believe, before we received a rejection letter.
Okay. And who submits that grant request?
We have a civilian employee who is a grant writer who basically compiles all of the information and submits it on our behalf.
Okay, and do you get any other outside help in writing for
We do. We had this year utilized a subject matter expert with Trevor Towey's assistance, and they reviewed our application and offered recommendations, and we were able to incorporate some of those recommendations into this application process.
Okay.
In addition, the former grants director was involved in the process as well and reviewed the application before it was submitted.
The former grant director with the city?
Correct.
Okay, and that was for this year?
Correct.
Okay, so you mentioned in 2022 the city. I'm just curious, trying to get a screenshot. Why didn't the city apply in 2022?
It is my understanding that the employee at that time was ordered to submit the grant and did not submit it in a timely manner. It was never submitted, and I
Okay.
don't have a reasonable explanation why that didn't
That's
happen.
okay. And I know you weren't chief at that time. So in 2023, so you said you used, I think, Local 385 or some subject matter experts that helped the city. I know Trevor mentioned in his comments, he said, when he thanked the mayor and you, he said, we're on the same page and the same path. So I'm assuming you using their, not only our subject matter experts, but you were willing to work with 385. And I know in talking to some of the rank and file, they do have subject matter experts that did this for FEMA. And, you know, if you sit next to the smartest guy in class, you can learn a lot from him, smartest gal. So that's, the city chose to do that this year in engaging outside help beyond the city's experts.
Correct.
Okay.
And honestly, that comes down to President Towie and I have a very good working relationship. We share a lot of the same goals with regard to growth of the department. It's a matter of how can we do that and make sure it is fully funded. The decision was made to go with the SAFER grant, and right now we just don't want to jeopardize that grant application process by showing that the city's committed to finding funding.
Okay, thanks, Chief. I'll hold my comments for some more questions later. Thanks, Mr. President.
Thank you. I don't think I've seen any further lights. Okay, Ms. Melton.
Oh, sorry. You gotta hit the button, don't you? No, I mean, I think everybody sitting up here is absolutely committed to this. In fact, I've been on the council since 2013, and I have approved every single budget increase for the fire department, increasing the budget by $58 million since I've been on the city council. One of my goals was to make sure that we had the trucks and new trucks in service, so we weren't driving the old trucks. I fully supported the additional $44 million. I remember it was back in, I think, 2014-15, we actually got a master plan done by actually a graduate student from UNO. UNO is gone. I would have given them a heads up. The student chose to do it for their doctorate program. They studied the entire Omaha firefighters, all the stations, where they were located, the call volumes. I mean, it was a massive project. And I know one of the things was moving the Cass Street station from where it is on Dodge Street, and also adding a station out in northwest Omaha with all the growth that we have. Station 70 is finally coming to fruition. We're buying the land, and shovel's going to go in the ground so that we have a brand new fire station, and that fire station has to be staffed. And we can't staff it with all new people, right? We need to just increase the size of our department so that we can space out new people and those firefighters and medics with the experience to go alongside the new firefighters. Here's my concern. I want the $6.8 million of the SAFER grant. I want this SAFER grant. I want to ensure that we have the money for the next 3 years. And once, obviously, as you know, once we increase staffing, and we have increased, again, we've added 55 new full-time positions in the department, which I have fully supported each and every one. I fully support actually having more than 18 firefighters. We need to have 18, plus we need to staff the new house. And that's what I talked to Chief Bossman about. This is actually about more than 18 firefighters. Here's the deal. This is a resolution which actually, for purposes of this budget, has no meaning because we're not amending the budget. So we're not actually putting anything in the budget. So what we're actually doing is we're doing something that's a resolution that has no binding effect. We're not amending the budget. We're not doing anything other than just saying we're making the commitment. And what we're doing is risking getting the $6.8 million. I mean, so for me, I sometimes tell people it's like cutting off your nose to spite your face. You want the commitment, but getting this commitment that we will fund it could cost us getting the SAFER grant, which is what we really need, and which actually does commit to hiring the other firefighters. and making sure that we increase that staff by more than 18. And Chief Boston, I don't know how many additional firefighters we need. Could you come up for Station 70?
So the conversations so far for Station 70 have been an additional 18. Obviously, that is something that will have to be reviewed as far as when they're going in service, and it's all dependent, again, on when the station opens up. It is something that could be phased in with, you start with maybe an engine or a medic unit, or if funding allows immediately, we do both. But that is the conversations we're having today, is an additional 18 above and beyond the SAFER grant positions.
And the grant also, it's not just for additional positions. Does it include a truck or a medic in the grant?
The grant-funded positions would be for an engine and a medic unit.
So for an engine and a medic unit.
Correct.
So that's why this grant is so very important, because by getting this grant, we guarantee, we don't just commit, we guarantee that we're getting an additional 18 firefighters, and we guarantee we're getting another truck and a medic. And so I guess here's my thing. I don't want to vote for something that's going to cost us a guarantee just so that we can have a feel-good moment. I want everyone in this room to know I've been committed to everyone, to fire, to increasing staffing, to getting new apparatuses, to getting a new firehouse station in Northwest Omaha. I am not going to do anything that really is meaningless other than just words, because it's not amending the budget. It's a resolution, and it's a resolution that could cost us the SAFER grant. That's what I absolutely can't wrap my head around, because I know the chief, your chief, has worked so hard on this grant and trying to make it happen. I can tell you that, by the way, if we don't get the SAFER grant, again, we can continue to look for other funding sources. I think the chief can, over the next year, Chief Bossman, if there's other ways you could save money in the first and second quarter, there still are things that you could do to overstaff in 25. Isn't that correct?
We would absolutely look at the budget to see if there were options to reduce spending in other areas to possibly put rigs in service, but I can't promise that today.
Right. And again, making that kind of commitment, I think it cost us the SAFER grant. I don't even want to take that chance. And I want to say that I trust you, and I trust that you care about the department, and that is part of your job. And I think by saying we have to have this commitment, I feel like it's almost saying we don't trust you. And I do. And when I receive the commitment from you, and I receive the commitment from the mayor, I know that I'm going to hold the mayor to it. But when she's made a commitment to me, I've never had her go back on that in all these years. And I want to just say that I've made my commitment to the fire department, and I've lived it, and I've proven it. So my vote is to save the SAFER grant. My vote today is to try and ensure we get the SAFER grant. Because, by the way, this resolution is for $1.2 million. So we just want a commitment for 1.2. That's what's written in here. Why would we do something like that when it'll risk $6.8 million? So I guess what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to save the fire department from losing this grant, because I want it. And I think what we've done this year by bringing in the experts and actually putting the amount of work, time, work, energy, and expertise into this grant, I'm hoping that we will get it this year. And again, I have no doubt that both you and the mayor will work to make sure that we are staffed and that we can open Station 70. But without the grant, we may not have the medic unit and the truck. So again, that's why this grant it's more than just 18 firefighters. It's so much more important. Because I believe if we get this grant, there may be a possibility that we could add more than the 18. So I really do appreciate what you do. I do take you at your word, Chief, and I appreciate that. Thank you. I have one question from law.
Matt Kuzi, Law Department.
So Matt, my biggest concern about this is what's called supplanting. Because if you apply for a grant and then you commit and you show that you actually have the money to pay for it, and especially committing to paying for it before we receive the grant, isn't that the definition of supplanting?
The concern I have is that it's general grant policy that federal grants are meant to supplement funding, not supplant it, as you said. The concern that I've expressed to the council, that looking at agenda item number 6, which has now been approved, the roughly $1.2 million reduction in the levy, combined with agenda item number 12, which then talks about a $1.2 million possible future funding request, is giving a sign to the federal government that the city of Omaha has this money and is just asking for the SAFER grant to supplant its current funds. Regardless of how the council votes on agenda item number 12 or whatever outcome comes of that, my concern is the mere fact that agenda item number 6 and agenda item number 12 in the totality of circumstances appearing together has a very, I believe, good likelihood, possible likelihood, I can't speak with any definitiveness, nor can anybody in this room, that can endanger the SAFER grant with those two together. Standing alone, I think the chances are less concerning, but putting those two together and in the context that they're in, that places the SAFER grant in jeopardy based on it being that we're supplanting funding rather than supplementing it.
Thank you, and I think that's my biggest concern. I don't want to do anything that will risk us getting the grant. I will always commit to doing everything I can to increase the number of firefighters we have. I obviously have personal stake for my own district in making sure that we have Station 70 opening, and I do know that we're in the middle, I believe, of purchasing the land, and that is in our CIP, which we have, which we will be voting on. I think we do need to, we have bonds for that, and so I think we've shown our commitment. We're going to build the building. We're going to have to staff it. So there's the commitment. The commitment is having Station 70 in our CIP. It's there. We're going to staff it. There's the commitment right there. And I don't know why we would want to jeopardize the SAFER grant. So I really appreciate everybody coming down here, and I think we're all on the same page. And sometimes we could say it might just be semantics, but the semantics could cost us the grant. And I think that's really, really unfortunate, because I think we could add a lot more than 18 firefighters if we got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to echo what Councilmember Melton said. I mean, I agree with her as well. And my question was going to be to Mr. Kuzi along the same line. I just wanted to understand better in my mind what the risks were on passing this resolution today as it pertained to that obtaining the SAFER grant. The last thing that I want to do as well is to jeopardize an opportunity to get money from FEMA to help with the expenses that we have to provide service to our city. And I'm not sure that that's clear in my mind that we wouldn't be jeopardizing it by making by positively passing both of these resolutions. So I think Amy asked the question that I was going to ask, so I think I'm pretty happy with that.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to bring back to our attention that the president of the City Council has already done due diligence and seeking additional expertise from the law department to analyze the worthiness of jeopardizing the SAFER grant. And based on the recommendation that he received, it was determined
that this would not put that grant at risk. So I would like to bring us back to that point that had already been stated by the president of this city council. So I would go on to say approving additional staffing is proactive and an essential step to ensure the continued success and efficiency of operation, regardless of potential grant awards. While management or the city may be banking on the grant, relying solely on uncertain funding is risky. Investigations have shown that having a plan B, hiring more staff now, does not jeopardize the grant process, but rather strengthens the organization by demonstrating readiness and commitment to meet growing demands. Understaffing puts undue strain on current employees, leading to burnout, decreased productivity, and ultimately a decline in service quality. By approving additional staffing, we address immediate operational needs, prevent potential service disruptions, and provide a clear message of support for the workforce. Moreover, securing new staff now allows for better preparation, training, and integration, positioning the organization to perform optimally whether the grant is awarded or not. The union's request is not just about increasing headcount, it's about ensuring sustainability, improving morale, and maintaining the level of service that our community depends on. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any further lights. Mr. Begley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Mr. Tui, can I get you to come up for a question, please?
Trevor Towie, 6005 Grover.
I always get your name mixed up.
That's
Towie,
all right.
Sorry.
Accept your apology.
A question for you. Staffing concerns. Do you ever bring that up at the table? Is that something you bargain on?
No.
Okay, thank you. I also would be remiss to, I know Council President Festerson thanked the Omaha Police Department for the quick response in Northwest High School. Your members answered the call as well, as they have, I got an example on May 14, 2014, I got a call. I was in a friend's house taking signs down on election day after. And it was my dad, and he was sitting on his front porch at 3432 Webster, and he was having chest pains. And I hung up and called 911, and I drove from 38th and Center to 3432 Webster. My dad was on the porch. It took me maybe 8 minutes to get there. There was a rescue squad, a fire truck, and 6 of the brave firefighters on the porch, had all the things on my dad. They took him down to St. Joe Hospital, and he had a heart attack, and they resuscitated him, brought him back, and he lived until October, so he lived 7 months. And I always keep that in the back of my mind as I talk to your firefighters. I went to Station 1 downtown and had a great lunch back in the spring, and it didn't last as long as I wanted it because you guys got a call, and you guys all scattered. One of you went down the pole, and I said, there's no dang way I'm going down that thing. I didn't know those things were still around. But I learned to appreciate the work that the men and women of the fire department do in Omaha, answering the call for my dad, for our families, and had a recent discussion with a young firefighter at Station 1 recently. I think he said he had 23 calls that day. So when I think of those things, and my colleagues of Goodwill up here, we we listen, we get the budget, the mayor proposes it to us, also of goodwill. And sometimes we just come from a little bit of different angle on it. The chief does a great job. I sat on the Public Safety Committee for 2 years. And Omaha is well represented with good leadership in the fire department and a lot of the rank and file here today. I can't ever forget, though, that call and the response times from that May 14, 2014, and the increase that has been mentioned in the number of calls that are performed by the men and women of the Omaha Fire Department. And to me, it's about the firefighter and citizen safety. So I may disagree with the mayor on her budget. Yeah, we talked about it in June, but things evolve, and I am comfortable supporting this today, and I hope we get the SAFER grant as well. But to me, losing out on it by not applying in 2022, not getting it in 2023, hoping and praying that we get it for this cycle of the fiscal year. If we don't get it, I just want to make my commitment that I'm supporting this due to the fact of the things that sometimes are out of our control, but we can't control the citizen safety and the firefighters' well-being of the number of calls you do, and trying to continue to support that as we all do up here. We're big fans of the local law enforcement and first responders in Omaha. So I will be supporting this resolution today. Thanks, Mr. President.
Thank you. There are no further lights. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second. A motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Harding. Hug.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
No.
Rowe.
No.
Bagley.
Aye.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 4-3.
Thank you all for your testimony, and thank you for being here. I'll give it maybe a minute to clear the room before we take the next item.
No, not me. I'm just a volunteer for the Navy to keep law and order.
Okay, I think we can proceed, Madam Clerk.
Item 13, a resolution to approve the request that the 2025 approved budget includes an updated narrative description for the climate pollution reduction grant and language detailing how the remaining grant money will be used for year one priority list of strategic options to implement the climate action plan.
Public hearing and vote on number 13 is today. Proponents, please.
There's no narrative in the budget on any updates, and there's no financial implication or effect on the budget, and thus I think it should be considered somewhere else on our agenda and not in the budget amendments. It does not have an impact on the budget.
I don't agree with that point of order. This does amend the budget and clarifies what a $1 million grant that's expressed in the budget and is budget related, even though it's a resolution. Madam Clerk, continue. Oh, public hearing, sorry. Proponents, please.
David Corbin, 1002 North 49th Street. I represent the Nebraska Sierra Club. A significant amount of time and energy was given to the Omaha Climate and Resiliency Plan from many sectors of the city and for a wide variety of topics, including energy efficiency, solid waste, public health, green spaces, and others. Well thought out objectives were established. The accounting of the funds that were allotted is a logical next step. Furthermore, the efforts expended in the developing of the city's plan has the potential to seek a wide range of new funding. This resolution is a financially and an environmentally prudent initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Stephen Dickerson, 5214 Cass Street. I'm representing the Omaha Students for Sustainability. We support this resolution. We think it would be incorrect to leave the budget without clarifying language regarding the Omaha Climate Action and Resilience Plan, including these grants and how they relate to it. We think that adding this language is an important step in the direction of not only implementing this plan, but also just giving citizens clarification over what climate action means to this city by putting it in the budget. So thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Good afternoon, council members. Bui Ray Tut, 5003 California Street. I first like to start off by saying condolences to the mayor's mother. As a person who lost his mother 2 years ago of cancer, that's the pain I still have to deal with. On the resolution on Spark's mission centers on holistic community development and disinvested communities. The disinvested communities that Spark serves are disproportionately impacted by environmental solutions like air pollution, water pollution, and urban heat island effects, especially in North and East Omaha. As my ESL teacher used to tell me, I should just slow down in reading and I'll get through this quick. So Spark supports, I'm sorry.
You're doing fine. Yeah.
Thank you. Spark supports climate action that prioritizes climate resilient development in these communities. Spark supports the city efforts to implement the climate action plan. Spark also supports using available resources to prioritize action items. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents today?
Luis Jimenez, 2709 Dewey Avenue. I support this item. I will say that the city government does a unsatisfactory job with community engagement. And you say that you do it to involve the community. I say that you still are needing to inform the community about what is transpiring, what the process is, what the desired outcomes are. So this item will go a long way to at least getting us to informing the community. But that's still a tier lower than involving the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Christy Abdul with Keep Omaha Beautiful, and I want to support this. I think, yes, we need an accurate accounting of how the funds have been spent so far, and that's important. But I do really like the ideas, if there's funds left over from that could be used as part of the planning process for planning year one. I've been involved, and our team has really been involved in participating in these monthly meetings. We've been involved in the community meetings, and there's been a lot of work from a lot of sectors involved in this. And so I think having the accounting and then using those funds for that planning in that year one's going to be important, because it's a big project, and we really need to narrow down, what are our next steps going to be? What are the actual steps that we're going to be able to take and succeed at in the city? So, yeah.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Marco Floriani, Mayor's Office, just here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents that want to speak today? Seeing none, any opponents?
Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. I'm opposed to this because it smacks to me of one world government controlled by the United Nations and the one worlders of the world. The utopian ideas of what the world ought to be. Your body and the mourning body always decry being lost, losing your control to the state who has all these unfunded mandates. Well, that's exactly what happens when you go operating on the basis of grants. And I heard some discussions about, well, what happens if this and what happens if that. You've got to realize that you're throwing your control and my control away by going for grants, probably federal most of the time. You're giving control back to a federal government that sent it to us in the first place. So you're actually overriding the concept of the Constitution and the Republic. Federalism was sharing government responsibility. That which is not in the Constitution belongs to us, the state. And our representatives are supposed to handle it for us, but you are not. You are going back to the federal government for money. That loses the control that you have and that I have, because they want what they want when they give you their money, which is actually out of my pocket to start with. So you need to stop spending grant money that may not be there next year because the federal government says, we didn't like the way you did that. You need money out of the budget for stuff that's not utopian. North Omaha can use some of that money that you think is grant money, that it's always going to be there. Leavenworth Street needs it to help fund the bicycle paths now. North Saddle Creek Drive needs it for the other side of the street. But then you need to look north and south of Northwest Radio Highway at the blighted area. That area needs it too, as well as North Omaha. You got to start deciding for us, for the people. North Omaha and North Saddle Creek Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents today? Seeing none, public hearings closed. Council members, I introduced this measure as well. I'll just speak to it briefly. Obviously, I'm an advocate of our climate action and resiliency plan and that process. That draft is almost complete. It should be going to planning board and city council here in October and November for formal approval and for implementation in 2025 and beyond. So if you've had a chance to read that draft, and I hope members in the public have participated in addition to the committee members that are here today, I'm pleased with its contents. I think it will be substantive in nature and have a number of solid recommendations for us to approve in terms of implementation and enhancing our commitment to that effort, which is the whole point of doing a plan and moving that forward. I want to thank the Students for Sustainability for their involvement too and for being here again today. During our public hearing, there wasn't an item that got more commentary than this item. And the observation that day from many testifiers was they support the process. The draft plan is almost done. We can largely see the contents in that draft for anyone who's been involved or wanted to be engaged to know what's coming and to anticipate what's next. But what the 2025 budget is missing is any kind of implementation discussion and certainly any funding dedicated to that. And I agree with that. It does not expressly mention that. So that's what this item does. It just acknowledges there is mention of $1 million EPA grant that we have accepted. That is in the budget right now. I believe it was page 405. But this clarifies that that entire grant is not yet spent, even with the completion of our Pale Blue Dot contract and with the completion of this plan. Approximately $265,000 still remain. And in my conversations with staff working on this, the mayor's office staff working on this project, we can use that for additional implementation funding in 2025. So that makes that clear. Likely items probably being things around electric vehicle station planning, enhanced compost planning, which by the way was the most popular item discussed by the public in the public participation in this plan. And potentially things like weatherization and solar planning and workforce commitments around that. So I think all those things would be worthwhile to pursue with that funding, and it just makes that clear. With that, I'll recognize the next slide, which is Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I'd like to thank all those who have come up to support support of this. And it should also be noted that for underserved communities, which are often disproportionately affected by climate-related issues, such as extreme weather, poor air quality, and rising energy costs, access to resources provided through a climate action plan can help address these inequities. By focusing on their specific needs, the funding ensures that these communities are not left behind in the fight against climate change. So I will be in full support of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Yes. Well, I just want to recognize, number one, this is a resolution to add language in the budget. And I guess, Mr. Storer, to what you normally are always up here talking about, it's transparency. Whether you think that the climate change is a complete hoax, we should spend nothing, or whether you are completely all about, we may die in 10 years because of climate change, whichever side of the line you're on, here's my thoughts. We actually should have information in the budget telling people what we are spending it on. Therefore, if you're for it, you actually have the knowledge that it's in there, that we're spending the money, and we have a plan. If you're against it, I actually think the knowledge should be there that we are spending money on it, and so it might be something you want to know the next time you go vote for somebody. So I guess what I'm doing, I'm supporting the fact that we're going to add the language just because I think every citizen in Omaha should have the information, and then make a determination whether they agree with Omaha moving forward, spending any additional money on climate change and resiliency and the plan. Not having it in there at all, or having any language in there, I think is a detriment to any citizen, regardless of what side of the aisle they're on. So I'm supporting this for the purpose of the transparency of where this grant money is being spent and how it's being spent and what it'll be spent on potentially moving forward. So that's the reason that I'm supporting this, because it does provide more transparency to the general public to make that determination and voice their opinion next year at our potential budget meeting. Do you want us to continue to fund these things, or come up and tell us that you don't want us to continue to fund these things? It's just really important that everybody has the knowledge. I don't want to hide it from people, whether they're for it or against it. I want it to be perfectly transparent that we're doing it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harding.
Thank you. I would agree with what Ms. Melton just said, and my reason for bringing the point of order up is that, and yes, it's mentioned on page 40, I forget what it is, but it is about the $1 million grant. But again, this has no impact on the budget itself. I thought it deserved to be discussed in a different portion of the agenda. But for the reason of transparency, so people do have a full accounting of it, I think it is important to have that discussion. I just thought it would be more appropriate in a different place.
Thank you. There are no further lights. Is there a motion? Motion to approve and a second. Roll call.
Harding.
Yes.
Hug. Yes. Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 14, a resolution that the Omaha City Council urges the city's Climate Action and Resilience Plan staff to seek additional grants and funding opportunities and partnerships.
Public hearing and vote on number 14 is today. Proponents, please. Yes.
There is no financial impact or effect on the budget, and therefore I think we should be discussing this in a different portion of the agenda. And I see by the look on your face that I'm going to get the same reaction. But again, I think this deserves discussion. I just don't think it's in the appropriate portion of the agenda to be doing so here.
Noted, and also noted, I do not agree, because it does address timely financial implications that we're seeking in 2025, even though it does not officially amend the budget. So I think it is appropriate at this point, and we do have testifiers here ready to address it. I would say continue. Proponents, please.
David Corbin, 1002 North 49th Street, representing the Nebraska Sierra Club. In addition to my comments on Resolution 13, this resolution would expand opportunities to seek additional funds that have already been allocated to Nebraska, not just the $307 million that NDE grant that's mentioned in the resolution, but also the $62 million Solar for All grant administered by the Center for Rural Affairs. Don't let the word rural throw you off, because this grant is targeted for residential solar and 40% is targeted for historically underserved communities, in which the largest population in the state reside in Omaha, more specifically North and South Omaha. In addition, Wichita State University received an Environmental Justice Thriving Communities Assistance Grant to serve EPA Region 7, which includes Missouri, Iowa, Nebraska, and Kansas. Omaha should tap into this grant, which provides training and other assistance to build capacity for navigating federal grants. This grant also prioritizes environmental justice. Tapping into the resources mentioned in this resolution, plus others that I listed, will help people save money on their energy bills, but will also help decrease OPPD's overall energy demand. And I should point out that in the previous discussion about possible grants and whether or not you should do something on a grant that's out there, these grants are already granted. The money is already there. This is a very important resolution that I hope you will all support. The environmental gains could be huge. But if environmental issues are not a motivation enough, the financial gains could be substantial. If Omaha doesn't access the funding to which they're entitled, that money will be spent elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Good afternoon. Again, Kimara Snipes, KIMARASNIPES. My address for the hat I'm wearing is 3902 Davenport Street in Omaha 68131. And bear with me, I'm entering the last year of my 40s and my eyes have let me know it. My name is Kimara Snipes, and I'm the Executive Director of One Omaha. We are dedicated to empowering people where they live with education, training, and engagement to develop thriving neighborhoods. I'm here today to emphasize the importance of implementing our city's climate action and resilience plan and to advocate for the formation of strong partnerships with community organizations like ours to apply for federal funding such as community change grants. The Climate Action and Resilience Plan is a crucial framework for addressing the environmental challenges all of us face. However, the success of this plan doesn't just rely on its development, but also on its execution and community integration. This is where organizations like One Omaha, Spark CDI, and others play a very pivotal role. Our work is centered on engaging local residents and empowering them to be active participants in creating positive change in our neighborhoods. By partnering with organizations like ours, the city can tap into our grassroots networks and local expertise, ensuring that climate action strategies are effectively communicated and implemented at the community level. Community change grants provide an invaluable opportunity to support these local efforts. These funds can be used to develop and implement programs that address specific needs within our neighborhoods, from sustainability initiatives to educational workshops on climate resilience. They allow us to tailor our efforts to the unique characteristics and challenges of all of our communities, making climate action even more accessible and more impactful. When you collaborate with community organizations and leverage these grants, we enhance Omaha's ability to achieve its climate goals while also strengthening our neighborhoods. This partnership is how we ensure that our climate initiatives aren't just top-down directives, but are embedded in the fabric of our community, driven by by local needs and aspirations. The successful implementation of the Climate Action and Resilience Plan requires a collective effort. By working together with organizations like One Omaha, Spark CDI, and others, utilizing resources such as community change grants, we can create a more resilient, engaged, and sustainable city. I urge the City Council to embrace this collaborative approach and support these crucial partnerships. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Thank you again for having me. My name is Bowie Ray Tut, 5003 California Street. Spark supports the city's efforts to go after available federal funding opportunities, growing Nebraska's share of federal funds, and key to access or key to the success of Omaha, Nebraska. The EPA has classified census tracts in North Omaha as disinvested communities due to higher than normal levels of pollution and disproportionate climate impacts, such as the urban heat island effect. Spark is currently convening community partners and community advisory board in partnership with the city to apply for a $20 million community change grant. The project is grassroots, community-driven expansion of the North Omaha Trail focused on reducing air pollution in North Omaha and enhancing climate-resilient infrastructure. The project adds 3 miles of trail and offers supporting programming along the trail, including tree planting, air quality monitoring, and programs to ensure equitable success. Spark and 7 partner organizations are excited to activate the community's vision on this project. Spark appreciates the leadership of numerous city staff, council members, and the mayor's office who supports this project. The project aligns with multiple city efforts, including the City Action Plan, Active Mobility Transportation Plan, and Thriving Communities Initiative. The project complements investments made by the city and the state in North Omaha Economic Development Project in recent years. Passing this resolution would solidify the broad community consensus to submit a strong, highly competitive application that reflects the comprehensive or cohesiveness and unity in Omaha supporting this project. Spark looks forward to continuing to work alongside city officials and community members to support action on climate initiatives, improved quality of life for residents, and leveraging federal dollars to complete this project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Stephen Dickerson, 5214 Cass Street, District 1, representing Omaha Students for Sustainability. I just want to speak to Councilman Harding's concerns with, well, not concerns, but just comments about how important this is. Yes, while I agree that this isn't as important as other items in this agenda, I think adding language is a really important thing for your citizens that will look at this budget. And when they saw it first and didn't see anything about climate, I know a lot of people that were really concerned. And so by adding this, you're kind of going to address those concerns. And so it is important. I would also like to thank Councilwoman Johnson's additions about underserved urban communities and low-income communities. As Councilman Festerson writes in this resolution, the Nebraska Pollution Reduction and Planning Grant, the $307 million, and that would go to that, which is super important because we see social justice as a major component of climate action as well. You can't have climate action without social justice, so that's also super important. We also support the idea that we just encourage the CARP to seek those additional grants next year, and the funding opportunities already available instead of just waiting. Obviously, it's not a huge thing, but when you're looking at the context of how long this plan could take, it's important to start things now, get the ball rolling, and get that language in the budget to show that you are committed to this. So thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Hello, Christy Abdul Green, Keep Omaha Beautiful, 1819 Farnham Street. I want to talk to you about trees as it relates to this. So it's been a devastating year for tree loss and tree canopy loss in the city of Omaha. And we know that trees do many things for our city, including reducing urban heat island effects, which really, when we look at the urban heat island map, that really does affect, again, historically redlined neighborhoods, although we do see it out throughout the city in different areas where we see that urban heat island effect, which impacts health, mental health, and all those things. We know that trees help with stormwater management. We know that it reduces noise pollution where we have trees along a highway. No one wants to be along a highway with not a tree there, and no one wants to live in that space. Trees make a difference. It removes carbon dioxide and helps with pollution. And so, you know, when we have, our trees program has grown. We're going to be launching a very exciting program called Trees for Tomorrow in October, which I will share with all of you through an email. But I think the way that we get funding for this is there's federal dollars to help us solidify the purchase of trees. And not only that, as I've talked to private donors who are also very interested in this, when they hear we're seeking funding through a variety of sources, foundations, private donors, federal funding, state funding if there's funding, city funding, they're more likely to give or to match the donation that we might get in a federal grant. So we have a lot of work to do. I'm sure many of you have driven around your cities and neighborhoods, or driven around the city and neighborhoods and seen a lot of our large trees have been here for so long, the loss of that, which is just devastating. But what I am excited to say is that when I look, I see our trees that we planted, that Keep Omaha Beautiful and the community planted in the last 5 years. And those are still standing, and they're strong because they could bend with the wind. And had we not done that or invested in that, then that tree canopy loss would even be more devastating. But if we continue to plant, we are going to have more wind, we'll have more storms. Whether you believe in climate change or not, that's going to happen. And so I think being able to go after, and just the commitment that we're going to seek this funding does have a really important impact on our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Luis Jimenez, 2709 Dewey Avenue. First, I want to echo the comments supporting your ruling, Mr. President. I think Mr. Harding should have asked for a second if he really wanted to push the matter. But asking questions in the budget process, that is just a concomitant, a natural thing when approving budgets. What question? Because later on you may have the same questions. You'll have more questions based on the initial questions that you asked. So I think that it was an appropriate ruling. This asks the staff to seek additional grants. I think that we should all, it's good that you have it on the agenda because the local industries should be doing the same. Because a big component to the action plan will be self-regulation, to start with self-regulation, and then maybe approve regulations to incorporate an entire industry once there is evident movement towards something relating to the action plan. And that's behavioral change. So the behavioral change is going to be an important part of it, and the industries, local industries, should want to take the lead on that so that they don't feel like they're being overregulated or something like that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents?
Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, 68132. I need my glasses in order to see through all the notes that I've made here. Ditto to my previous remarks on number 13, I think it was, but I want to expand on that because the two are related. besides giving out control to the federal government, you are giving out control to a lot of 501c3s and the so-called partnerships and community partners around Omaha, who more or less also have taken power away from the ability of a citizen to come down here and talk with you two ways about some of these issues. They seem to get to talk with you, and they sometimes come down and get money from you. The citizens, who you're supposed to represent, don't. I can only vote for one person in or out of office. I can't vote against all 7 of you. So it's 6 against 1, or 6 against 2, or 7 against 1. And that's the way it works in this town, and that's wrong. You don't see a whole lot of people interested in their local government here today, do you? The reason is it doesn't make any difference what they have to say down here. You do what you want to do anyway. And you will not discuss with us face to face while we're at the microphone. That's wrong. So I think you need to start doing away and say no to some of these community partners. I could form a 501c3 and get in line for the money and have some power, but I choose not to do that. And I choose not to run for office because it's more fun to run away from it and not be part of the problem. I could do little to influence the other 6 members of that board, whether it's here or in the county. And by the way, thank you for fixing the sound system, whoever fixed it between the morning session and the afternoon session. It obviously had needed fixing for a long time. How did that get fixed between the 2 meetings today? And why, I'd like to ask why, for some reason, Juanita's microphone doesn't work. You didn't fix the whole thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents?
How are you, young man?
I'm fine. How are you?
Donnie Johnson, 4928 North 52nd Street, the North Omaha Concerned Citizen Foundation, and the Johnson Equestrian Foundation. And I was going to share with this young man and the future leaders of this community how politics work. Government for the people, government by the people. And I was going to ask Mr. Begley, since he was with OPPD, Omaha Public Power District, does that actually mean that the citizen owns it and we get a dividend check? No? Okay. In the meantime, let's go back to this whole process.
Stay on topic, please.
I'm trying to figure this out about, should we continue down this road, or should the citizen who have not had lights for 2 weeks get a gift card from OPPD? I'm trying to figure this out.
You're not on topic, Dan. You have to address this item. Okay. Are there any other opponents to number 14? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Let's address it briefly without being repetitive to the previous item. But similar to the previous item, this was an issue we heard a lot about during our public hearing, as was mentioned by our testifiers today. And I agree that it's going to take funding in our budgets, our city budgets, to implement the actions eventually in the implementation plan that is coming to us for approval. And frequently that's going to save us money by taking those actions. And I actually think a best practice would be to have included some dedicated staff or staff members in the 2025 budget to do that. That is not currently in the 2025 budget. So absent that, what we have for now is this resolution that expresses the city's intent to pursue some federal dollars that already are available and some of our partners intend to pursue in the community to start making a difference on these issues in 2025. We talked about the $20 million community change grant. There's the USDA composting grants that are available. Mr. Corbin mentioned the solar grants. And definitely the state grant, $307 million awarded to the state of Nebraska. That was unprecedented in our state's history. And Bowie is right that a portion of that must be used for communities that are urban in nature and underserved communities. So it's important, I think, we express our intent to partner with the state to leverage those funds for the betterment of our city. So that's the intention of this resolution. With that, I'll recognize Ms. Milton.
Thank you. The difference between this resolution and the last one is this resolution isn't going in the budget. It's not being mentioned anywhere in the budget. It's just a statement. So it really doesn't have anything to do with the budget. My problem with this is that we have a city's climate action and resilience plan, but we haven't seen what's in the plan. Everything that's mentioned here so far, I absolutely support. The EPA Community Change Grant with partnering with Spark, expanding the North Trail. Fabulous, absolutely fabulous. I support expanding composting, applying for grants for that. I support applying for the pollution reduction planning grant, obviously reducing pollution, clean air, clean water, that benefits us all. However, I do think it's a little misleading when we mention $307 million pollution reduction planning grant. That's what the state got. So it kind of seems like Omaha got $307 million. We have not. I absolutely love planting trees. I know that I just did 50,000 to help cut down trees earlier, but I would like to plant the dead ones we have to remove. I would like to replant new ones. So absolutely love that, which also helps with clean air. So I support applying for a number of those grants and any and all of them that we said, but this is a little more open. This basically says if it's in the climate action and resiliency plan, then this kind of seems to me that we're stating that the city should be mandated to apply for any grants as recommended by the plan, and it's a plan which we have not been able to read. So you're asking me to pass something mandating that we apply for grants for recommendations that I don't know what the recommendations are. So in my opinion, we can apply for the grants. The city is applying for the grants. We've already committed to applying for grants with people that are sitting in this room right now, but I'm not going to commit to mandate the city to apply for every grant for every recommendation in a plan, pass it, and then see what's in it. Is kind of how I feel. I support funding. I think we were just talking earlier, small nuclear. I want to be more energy independent, but what I don't support is regulations that would require all buildings to go net zero and would come at a cost where we won't have any development in Omaha. So there's a lot of things that you can do in the name of climate change that are actually counterproductive to the growth of our city. And so I'm not in support of this. I'm in support of the grants that are named. I think I've already committed to some of them. Flood control, absolutely. Active mobility action plans, absolutely. Those are grants that I would support, but I'm not going to leave it open-ended. And so, and again, this is just a resolution that isn't going anywhere. It's not being printed anywhere. It really has no effect other than, I think, a yes vote makes it seem like we're going to mandate the applications for grants in a plan we haven't seen. And I'm against that. I don't think that that's transparent for the citizens either. And so for that reason, I'll be voting no.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe.
I kind of wanted to continue that thought. In my mind, it was last year, the mayor's office applied for an EPA grant for $1 million. And they didn't come to us for approval to apply for that grant, I don't believe. They came to us for approval on accepting the grant. And I think here, in the same light, I don't think that we need to give approval to Marco's department or to the mayor's department to apply for the grants. They're going to do that. And then they're going to come to us with the grants that they are successfully awarded, just like the $1 million for the Pale Blue Dot study. So I think this is kind of a specious resolution in my mind. It just doesn't really make sense. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Harding.
Thank you. Two things. So my point of order on this and the last one was not to diminish the importance of either one of them. In fact, I think I said that they are important and they deserved conversation only in a different part of our agenda. So to cover that issue. And then I'm going to be a little more blunt than Mr. Rowe because, as I said earlier in the meeting today, he's a little more reverent than I am. This is a feel-good resolution. We don't have to tell our departments what their business is, what grants to go after. They're professionals, and they'll bring them to us.
Thank you. I don't think I see any further lights. Is there a motion?
Motion approved. Second.
Motion is second to approve. Roll call.
Harding.
No.
Hug.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
No.
Rowe.
No.
Bagley.
Aye.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 4-3.
Thank you for your testimony.
Item 15, a resolution to approve an increase of an additional 1% to the budgeted restricted funds for the fiscal year 2025.
The vote on this item is today, which I believe also contains a public hearing. It will require a vote of 6 council members eventually. The public hearing on number 15 is today, right?
No, there's no
public hearing on
it.
this item. Okay.
Second.
There's a motion to approve in a second. Is there a light? Yeah, Ms. Melton.
Quick question. Mr. Curtis, could you please just give a brief explanation of what this is? I know I had gotten some emails from some people that just weren't sure what this meant. And so if you could, I know I think there's people watching, if you wouldn't mind giving us a brief explanation.
Steve Curtis, City Finance. So this is really now becoming antiquated language, I think, with the new LB 34 that just passed, and this may be the last year we do it. But under the current levy lid system, this just gave you a little bit of flexibility and a few other choices about how you could spend money going into the future and kept the levy lids from getting quite so tight. Honestly, cities like Lincoln that didn't pay attention to this found themselves in somewhat trouble. But this doesn't require you to go spend any more money. It's not authorizing any raising of taxes or anything else. It's really just reflecting an old levy lid system that I believe will be replaced after this year.
So I guess so in my layman's terms, it's just kind of a safety plan in the event that we had something big that we would need to do it.
Yeah, it just allows the city some flexibility. It's voting to maintain the city's flexibility to budget how they need to, but it's not authorizing any particular increase today in any spending or taxes.
We would have to have another vote if we actually were to increase.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. And then Mr. Kuzy or Mr. Curtis, just because it is a bit unusual, can you explain to folks why this does not require a public hearing?
Macuzi Law Department, because we had the public hearing, I don't remember the date, the evening public hearing on the budget.
Okay.
That encompasses all of these budget items.
All right. Thank you. I don't see any further lights. There was a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Harding.
Yes.
Hug.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Bagley.
Aye.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 16, a resolution to raise revenue estimates and revise the expenditures of the 2025 budget due to the areas annexed into the city on July 31st, 2024.
The vote on this item is today. I presume there's no public hearing for the same reason.
Second.
There's a motion to approve in a second. Roll call.
Harding.
Yes.
Hug.
Yes.
Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley.
Aye.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 17, a resolution to approve the 2025 budget as submitted by the mayor with revisions adopted by city council at this meeting. A's Communications in opposition.
Council members, this would adopt the budget as amended. Is there a motion?
So moved. As amended.
There's a motion and a second. No further lights. Roll call.
Harding.
Yes.
Hug.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley.
Aye.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 18, a resolution to approve the 2025 through 2030 Capital Improvement Program. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Council members, this would adopt the capital improvement plan. The motion should be as amended by number 9.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Harding.
Yes.
Hug.
Yes.
Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Bagley.
Aye.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 19, to consider a liquor license addition application for a tiny house located at 1411 South 13th Street to add a building located at 1409 South 13th Street and an outdoor area.
Public hearing and vote on number 19 is today. Proponents, please.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the council. David Houghton, 2804 South 87th Avenue, here on behalf of the applicant, Tiny House LLC, doing business as Tiny House. The Tiny House is requesting an expansion of their property by going into a 900 square foot building adjacent to the property, and they're also asking for an additional license area on the outside. Mr. Ellis, one of their members of Tiny House, is here to answer any questions that you may have, and I will as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other proponents that want to speak? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Mr. Begley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Ryan, do you got a second for a couple questions? As if that's all right with David, one of you.
Good afternoon. Ryan Ellis, 1709 South 91st Ave.
Ryan, good afternoon. I got a letter of support from the Little Bohemia BID. They sent that in. Did you talk to any people in the neighborhood association down in Dolman?
Yeah, I met with the president of the Dolman Association, Karen.
Okay. And how did that conversation go?
Great. We met at Archetype Coffee on 13th Street. And
okay.
Talked through the
Close
plan.
by?
Yep.
Okay, I was there the other day, so.
Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate you. You want to just give a brief description on what's going on? So,
sure. There's two existing homes on 13th Street. We renovated one that's now a tiny house. Next door was a salon. We're renovating it into a wine bar. It's about 863 square feet, so our capacity will be probably under 30 people, our chosen capacity. Tiny house, I think our certificate says we can have 49 people. We usually run our reservations under 40 people. We're more of a fine experience in terms of the craft cocktail component, so it's not, I know a lot of people hear the word bar and they're sort of frightened by it. There's an outdoor area that is currently fenced. We're looking to put the license onto that, but
in the back part?
Yeah, vision being like a party with a guest chef could come in and we could serve a wine dinner back there. Our bar hours, we closed at 1 on the cocktail bar. We will for sure close by midnight on the wine bar. It probably will be weeknights like 9 or 10 and maybe midnight Friday, Saturday.
You must have anticipated a couple questions I was going to ask you, so thanks for answering that part about the hours. And I'll make a motion to support this, and I wish you the best of luck and continued success in the growing Little Bohemia area down there. It's really neat to see the progress. We deal with challenges with traffic and other things as well that I'll continue to work on, and this is going to be a good part of the area down there, so I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. President. Motion approved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Harding.
Yes.
Hug.
Yes.
Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Items 20 and 21 can be considered together for Boyd's Addition, Replat 5, located at 3030 Sprague Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 20, an ordinance to rescind the ACI Overlay District. Item 21, a resolution to approve the final plat.
Public hearing and vote on items 20 and 21 are today. Proponents, please.
Members of the council, Douglas Dreesen, 10836 Old Mill Road, appearing on behalf of the applicant. This is a plat to try to clean up geometry in the 31st Avenue and Sprague area to make it a little easier for future development that's considered there. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Item number 20 states that this property is being rescinded, an ordinance to rescind. Can we explain why we're doing this?
The area of civic importance imposes a lot of architectural standards that really aren't compatible with what's there now. The idea here is to try to expand on what's existing in that area. There's a couple existing buildings there. One the developer would like to add on to. So the ACI imposes a tougher financial standard. You have to make the building look different than what it does now. So with that, the ACI makes the redevelopment more complicated, and at the planning department's recommendation, which we concurred with, we wanted to rescind that.
And what level of engagement was done in that community regarding this?
Not a lot. It's an industrial community. There was a rail line that used to go through there. It's kind of, when you look at these areas, it's years ago this was much different than it is now. So in order to make it compatible for development and try to eliminate some of the vacant property that's there, we want to clean up the property lines, make them a little more, I mean, I'm an engineer, I like rectangles. I don't really like curves, I don't really like triangles. So that's what we're trying to do here. There is more property to the north of this that's not as a part of this plat that's going to be considered in the development here.
And what level of engagement did you do, if any, with the council representative for that area?
I did not do any.
And nor did the person that you represent?
What's that?
Nor did the person that you represent?
I don't know that. There's a group of developers that I represent. I don't know all of them.
So am I to interpret this correctly? We have a underserved community, and federal dollars are oftentimes utilized to help with development plans, and yet we felt there was no need to have any engagement with the community, no engagement with the community elected official.
I think this project's not going to ask for any government money. The development group is very well heeled, and they can do this on their own. They have ties to this community, and they want to give back.
And who is the development group?
A very famous boxer.
And is their desire to remain nameless?
I don't know that. They did not put their name on the application. We applied for them.
So what do we plan to have there? Because obviously we have plans to do some type of development. So please draw me a picture of what that development looks like.
There's an existing building there that the development group would like to expand. The size of that has yet to be determined. There's vacant ground to the north that's also available. A lot of that's owned by the city. So that stuff will come forward. This is an early step in the process to clean things up and make things more development friendly. There's a building that sits in there to the east that's built essentially on a curve in an old railroad right-of-way. The old railroad right-of-way is still there. It makes the remaining geometry of the undeveloped property very difficult to make use of in an efficient manner. So what we're trying to do is get this from a purely engineering standpoint to a more rectangular, easier to develop situation.
I have no doubt that perhaps what we're doing is going to be fabulous, if that's what you want to call it. But the level of engagement, I would ask that, would we do that level of engagement that we did in this situation in any of my colleagues' districts without them being engaged?
Or is it because I happen to maybe be black that this is the reason why I'm being treated this way?
No, I don't think that has anything to do with it. I think it's a matter of the development group maybe assuming that everybody's going to know what's going on that corner. To some degree, it may be the development group not wanting to broadcast and get a lot of publicity.
Okay, that does not give that development group the right of way to disrespect me as a woman of color and a woman. It does not give them that right of way. I would like to be treated the same way my counterparts are treated when developments are happening within their communities.
Well, I'll apologize on behalf of myself and the development group that we didn't complete that communication with you, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, and I would like for us to make an appointment so that I am brought up to speed, because I have a responsibility to give feedback to constituents in which I serve.
I'm willing to do that. At this point, what you see in front of you is what I know. So if you review the documents that we've presented, that's as far as the development's gone at this point. We're very early in the process, and there are other things that we've got to go through before we can do a concrete site plan that's going to make sense to anybody.
So as I understand it, if I vote on this today with very limited information as to what the end might be, then at what point does this become something that cannot be backtracked?
That's a good question. I think at this point, we're limited by the boundaries of this plat. My understanding from the development team is the plans are for something much larger than what's limited by this plat. We'll be back adding to this as we go further in the development process.
Thank you, and this question is for city planning. Mr. Fanslow, I've had very little engagement with this proposed process. Is this the type of level of engagement that you provide to all of the other city council members in their prospective districts?
Dave Fanslow, City Planning. No, I don't favor one council member over another. I will add that this was on the June Planning Board agenda, and this is the final plat. So at some point, I don't have that information in front of me, but at some point the preliminary plat came through with this separately to this council previously. So I don't have that information, but the council has already voted on the preliminary plat, and we reached out, or we sent notification for this project to about 30 neighboring properties.
Okay, I would like for it to be clear that this is not the type of level of engagement that I like to have in the district that I serve, where individuals are making less than $20,000 a year for an average income. And yet I am the only city council member that have those odds against them in terms of dollar amounts, in terms of income. So I would expect that some latitude would be given to me regarding level of engagement.
Sure.
And should I vote on this today, I would expect an obligation from you that we engage a little bit more frequently than this, because this makes us look disconnected to this gentleman in front of me. And I shouldn't have to point these things out.
Well, I would add, since I'm being accused of not engaging, that these documents for this case were delivered to every council member's office probably the last week of May, since this case was on the June planning board agenda. And this is the first I've heard that you haven't been engaged.
I haven't been engaged, and quite frankly, oftentimes I'm not engaged. And again, I would like to see better engagement since I am the only individual that have odds such as $20,000 a year of income. I would like those exceptions to be made to me when things like this are being made or done.
Ms. Johnson, if it helps, typically we recommend neighborhood meetings to our clients, and it's my fault for not asking about that and making sure that the neighborhood was at least aware, or that the neighborhood didn't have any problems with it. I know most of the time we do that before planning board, because I tell clients, if you don't do that and someone shows up with concerns such as yours, you're going to get laid over for a month or two. The fact that we'd made it to this far, I think I overlooked that. Was there a neighborhood meeting? In this case, we did not get any negative feedback going through the planning process. But in the future, I'll give you my word that we will be in contact with you early in the process.
I'd appreciate that, but not only am I expecting that from you, but I'm expecting that from anyone that is doing something like this in my district, because I have a responsibility to share information with constituents, especially when their income levels as well as their ability to process information is there.
Understood.
It is critical, essential for me to have those tools in my arsenal in order for me to function the way I need to function.
Understood.
That these comments I'm making is not directly at you. I'm talking about the planning department. I am asking for a commitment to engage me more thoroughly before things begin to move, so that I can assist with the level of education that is needed for constituents in District 2 to navigate, understand, and be a part of the process. So please understand, I will not be supporting anything going further when I'm not engaged on the level that I believe I should be engaged.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
First, I'm going to make a motion to approve. And then secondly, for the record, the planning department does not contact me on every agenda item that might happen to be in my district. I get the information, I look at it. If I have a question, I can certainly reach out to Doug Dreesen or Larry Jobin or Brent Beller or Jason Thielen, you name the person, and they will pick up the phone or answer the call and explain what the issue is. So I don't think anyone's being treated any differently by the planning department when it said that some are getting more information than others on projects in their district. I think that's important to put on the record. I think this is a great project. As it has had plenty of public scrutiny, or at least the opportunity for public engagement and comment to date, and that's why I'm making the motion to approve.
There's a motion and a second to approve. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Respectfully, Councilmember Harding, you have the luxury to serve on the City Planning Board. Yes, you do.
With Planning Committee.
City Planning Committee. Tomato, tomato. You knew exactly what I was talking about. So yes, you had privy to that information. And if you did not serve on that committee, and that happened in your district, and you were okay with that, that's fine. That's your right. But I'm pointing out something that I need to better serve the people that I serve. And respectfully, that should not be overlooked, minimized, or thought as though I'm being somewhat overly sensitive. Back to me being a woman. Back to me being a Black woman. I find offense to that.
Ms. Johnson, in the future, we'll make sure that you're notified, whether we do that with everybody else or not. Now that I know your concerns and I know your position, we'll make an extra effort to make sure you're included.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Thank you. No, and I want you to know I always look at the agenda items, and if I do have questions, I reach out. So I understand I'll reach out to you if I have the questions, and I don't expect you to call me on every project you have in my district. I do read the planning board notes. I'm not on the planning committee. So I know the planning committee doesn't just sit and talk about every agenda item, especially in kind of an overlay. And I think in this one, you're just rescinding an ACI.
We're doing the recommendation of the planning board.
Right. I just wanted to let you know that I will pick up the phone, and I want to say that Mr. Fanslaw in planning, Eric, anybody in the planning department, if I've ever called, they're always responsive. I have never had planning department, anybody reach out to me on anything in my district. It's always been me reaching out to them, or typically, actually, usually, I'm reaching out to the developer themselves. Not that I don't care about planning department or planning board. I usually read the documents and I go right to the developer when I have the questions. And so I just kind of wanted to make that clear, that also I'm not treated any differently. That's how it's always been since I've been on council, and so that's what I've always done. And I don't necessarily expect the change, and I think it's great that you're offering to do that for another council member that wants to operate differently, because we all are different. And so I think that's great that you recognize kind of the differences of the people here, and you're willing to adapt. So.
Well, my only comment is, I am an engineer. I'm not supposed to advocate. So if you ask me engineering questions, that's my area of expertise. When you get me out of that, it's like talking to anybody in here. I'm just a regular lay person.
Yes.
Curves versus rectangles. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming down.
You're welcome.
All right. Ms. Johnson.
Again, I'm going to say that the remarks that we just heard comes across as being condescending regarding the needs of the level of engagement that I have requested. I'm finding it again by my colleagues, none of which have walked a mile in my sneakers. They're not Black and they're not a female. To continue to say that what I am asking for is unheard of is disrespectful. And I would ask that we stop with the condescending remarks made because I'm asking for something that I need. You can say what you need within the community in which you serve. But that does not minimize what my needs are, nor does it say that I have less of a value system or educational level to not want what I'm asking for. So again, I find it very offensive for me to be here every single week and these condescending remarks are made when I ask for things to help me with completing my job. Respectfully, I would ask my colleagues to respect me for the things that I ask for, shy of breaking the law. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second to approve. No further lights. Roll call.
Harding.
Yes.
Hug.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Items 22 through 24 can be considered together for Pacific Court located at 9402 Pacific Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 22, an ordinance to rezone this property from R1 District to R4 District. Item 23, a resolution to approve the final plat. Item 24, a resolution to approve the subdivision agreement.
Public hearing and votes on items 22, 23, and 24 are today. Proponents, please.
Hello, Mark Detliff, Earhart Griffin Associates, 3552 Farnham Street, here on behalf of the applicant to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Harding.
Yes.
Hug.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you.
Items 25 through 27 can be considered together for Avenue 1, located southwest of 193rd Street and HWS Cleveland Boulevard. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 25, an ordinance to rezone this property from AG District to MU District. Item 26, a resolution to approve the final plat. Item 27, a resolution to approve the subdivision agreement.
Public hearing and vote on items 25, 26, and 27 are today. Proponents, please.
Hello, John McCarville with Olson, 2111 South 67th Street, just here on behalf of the applicant for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Second.
There's a motion to approve in a second. Roll call.
Harding.
Yes.
Hug.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 28, a resolution to approve the Workforce Housing Round 3 Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Plan located south and east of Lake and North 40th Streets in amount up to $538,519.
Public hearing and vote on number 28 is today. Proponents, please.
Yeah, Don Seaton, City Planning. This is an infill redevelopment project in a North Omaha neighborhood. 13 new single-family homes be constructed on 13 lots. These are for sale affordable housing units constructed by Holy Name Housing Corporation. Total investment about $3.8 million. The TIF support is $538,000, excuse me, $519. Project meets the required criteria of the TIF program. It's an appropriate land use for the area. We ask for your approval.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Good afternoon, Matthew Kavanaugh, Holy Name Housing Corporation, 4324 Fort Street. Don summed it up well. This is the third iteration of our workforce housing program, so we're continuing to try to figure out how to essentially build market rate owner-occupied housing. So build the homes and put them on the market and sell them at a sort of affordable price for first-time home buyers or working families. So we haven't done it with TIF yet. We're hoping that's the silver bullet that allows us to finally make this a sustainable program. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents?
Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. Again, I'm generally opposed to any TIF plan because it's not explained well enough to the people. As I read this, if I was a citizen just coming in today and sitting down and hoping to talk about something, and I'd read this, and say, what do you mean giving away free housing? Again, these things are not discussed. Now, I missed that last discussion as to when you called for opponents to that item. And I just want to make a quick remark on this. Somehow ties in with that last one, in that my impression of that whole long discussion was here was a person hoping to get to this stage with TIF, but he was sticking his toe in the water to feel the temperature as to how far he could get with you people. Well, a little bit of discussion, and found out that maybe there wasn't enough discussion. And he's kind of giving a wimpy burger out there that I'll gladly pay you for a hamburger tomorrow for the hamburger today. This is another one of those, except it sounds like, well, maybe I ought to file for one of these houses. Mr. Kavanaugh, this is not against you personally. This is the process of TIP, and it's not racial, but it's not open and transparent enough. Ms. Johnson has some valid complaints, I think. I don't want to say that it's racist, because some of those same attitudes seem to carry over to me, because I complain, because I challenge. The only time we get any discussion is when we challenge. If we don't challenge you, there is no discussion. Correct, Juanita? That's the only way to get any answers. And that's not what government's supposed to be. We're supposed to get answers from our questions. And a two-way discussion, not after we leave the podium, but while we're at the podium. The same problem between me and Juanita seem to have that kind of a relationship with you people. We're not really in the mix. We're not really informed, but a lot of citizens are like me. They're not really informed because you're not explaining this. Why does it sound like those houses are free? That's on you people, not him.
Thank you. Any other opponents to number 28? Seeing none, public hearings closed. Mr. Rowe, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Matthew, you have a quick question or two?
Yes, sir.
So you'll be selling these properties for about $250,000?
That's right, yeah.
And you're subsidizing the sale price?
So the goal is, actually the goal is to stop subsidizing the sale price, but currently we are, yeah. So we have, we're doing version 2 right now in Miller Park, a little further north. And yeah, so they've been selling on the market at $250,000, which is the market price for these houses, which loses us the delta that it's around, in that case, is around $20,000, because those lots were nicer than the lots we're going to be dealing with here. So
it's going to take a little more work on these lots than.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. If you're familiar with this neighborhood here, there's just a lot more slope and a lot more trees, and than where we were working before.
The other question I had on a TIF project like this, do you need to hold on to those properties for a certain amount of time, or can you sell those as soon as you put in the wood floor?
So yeah, so under particular to TIF, this will be new for us, not totally unusual for projects in the city, but usually our TIF projects we hold and rent them through the life of the TIF. But these we'll sell. Usually we finish them once we get a CO. That's how we've done it so far. So once we have our certificate of occupancy, then we'll move on to listing them on the market. So I suppose we could list them before they're completed. But yeah, we'll sell them. So then it'll actually be the residents paying their property taxes on these homes. So there's a level of risk involved there for us, and a level of notification we'll have to do to the residents to let them know that they have a TIF on theirs, which really, it impacts them in the sense that they won't be able to, under the TIF agreement, they have to agree not to challenge their assessment. So that's one level of education that will have to happen when we're not the property owner through the life of the TIF.
Okay, I appreciate that response. I think this is the first time I've encountered this kind of a program where TIF was used for
on owner occupied.
Owner occupied.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe I'm mistaken, but
well, we looked. I mean, I was curious as well because we hadn't done it, but there's been a few townhome projects that are done. TIF on single-family homes is that kind of the exception in general. I believe Habitat has done TIF a number of times before as well.
Okay.
So it's not completely novel, but it's not the norm.
Okay, appreciate that. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Bagley.
Thanks, Mr. President. Good afternoon. Thanks for being here today, and I always want to make sure I thank you for the great work you do at Holy Name Housing for our community. And I'll put you on the spot here a little bit, but I think you can handle a little bit of a curveball. I get asked from time to time, and I want to let you define it here because I know you're a smart guy and you're my favorite Kavanaugh since you're here today, and the senator is not. Your brother, the senator, who's my senator. How do you distinguish affordable housing versus workforce housing?
Yeah, so with all those affordable housing definitions, there's always kind of two ways. Usually there's a technical definition of affordable, which is under whatever program, which has some kind of income restriction based number, and then there's also just sort of a colloquial answer to it. So, but to kind of merge those two answers, usually I think workforce housing has kind of been understood to go up to about 150% of the area median income. This program in particular has no actual income limits, so the use of that term in this program, because this comes from the state's middle income workforce housing investment program, I suppose it would be using the sort of colloquial version of that term, which is just workforce housing is that housing that we all imagine is available for those working families, first-time home buyers, or people who are still that don't have a whole that aren't going to be buying a larger, more expensive home. So, so I think technically the way the program uses the term is it's just those first-time home buyers, those starting families. But certain programs like the other agencies have done this where they've defined it up to 150% of area median income. I see it's kind of what we see from what we've done with this. It really does sort of merge where the incomes we're targeting, the folks who end up buying these homes, which can be anybody. It could be the gentleman who spoke before me as well. As long as you're not an employee or a direct family member of my organization, these homes are out there. Because our goal is to integrate higher income homeowners into the low income, high rental neighborhoods. So we're trying to create a variety of housing. This is the Adams Park neighborhood. We've done a lot of housing under the tax credit program for people at 60% of the AMI. We've done a lot of housing at the Affordable Housing Trust Fund program up to 100 or 120% AMI. And now we're trying to do some owner-occupied housing without an income restriction.
Okay, thanks for that detailed answer, and I'll be glad to support this today. And thanks again for all the work you do and being patient here today with us during our budget hearing and everything else. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Move the approval.
I'll second. Roll call.
Harding. Hug. Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Consent agenda. Any member of the City Council may cause any item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be taken up by the City Council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed, unless otherwise provided by the City Council Rules of Order.
The public hearings on agenda items 29 through 38 were held on August 27th. There's been a request to take number 29 off the consent agenda, so we'll take that item first.
I'll move to approve numbers 30 through 38.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve 30 through 38. No further lights. Roll call.
Harding.
Yes.
Hug.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Bagley.
Aye.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 29, an ordinance to accept the bid from Arrow Towing for towing services.
Mr. Hug, you're recognized.
To table this date specific to October 22nd.
October 22nd. Do you want to expand upon your reasons why, or?
I mean, I can, if that's the wishes of my peers.
That's up to you. The floor is yours.
Okay. Chief, Deputy Chief, would you come down, please?
Deputy Chief Steve Cerveny, Omaha Police Department, 505 South 15th Street.
I know legal counsel is listening to every word I'm going to say. So, Matt, if you have to shut me off, let me know real quick. You provided some information to the council, pre-council, earlier today. And that had to do with some information related to this particular tow company. Okay. And based upon the information that was shared to us today, I feel obligated to lay this contract over. Now, I know it's gone through the process, but ultimately, you know, the contract comes before us to approve. And in good conscience, I can't approve it when there's questions out there. And I think that we can get these questions answered, but I think that's going to take some time. So that's why I've made the motion to lay it over, date specific, to October 22nd. It was my intent to lay it over 30 days, but the 30 days kind of collides with what used to be called Columbus Day. And so I went to the week following. So if anybody has any specific...
I'll second your layover. I think that...
I'm just trying to be careful.
Right, I'll second your layover.
Okay.
Thank you. There's a motion, a second, to lay over. Mr. Harding.
Well, first of all, I was going to ask if it had gotten a second yet, but now I know the answer to that, because I didn't think that I had heard one. I think the information that was discussed at pre-council is not, it's not really germane to the item we have in front of us, because the item we have in front of us is the Public Works Department's request for the towing of city vehicles. And the information that was discussed at pre-council today had to deal with the towing, other towing services related to the city, but not city vehicles. These are two separate issues, and I don't think it's proper for us as a body to sit in judgment based upon accusations that have not been substantiated. There are no charges filed. There's no, in my estimation, there's no reason to hold this one up. It's not associated with, it's not germane to the other item that we talked about earlier this morning. So I will not support a layover on this.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Week after week, I have been tolerable with liquor license and the financial responsibility of them, and individuals that have submitted liquor license. And we've had much debate about whether or not they were in good financial standing. And my colleagues have, although the law department have told them over and over and over again that it is not our role to use that as a measurement as to whether or not we will recommend. But I bring this up because this is the same scenario. I see likeness in what we're doing, what we do with liquor license based upon some arbitrary information that some financial indebtedness is there. And now we have another situation today where we've had some phone calls that were made and some accusations were made. They still are accusations. Accusations are accusations unless we have facts. I call for the question of consistency in how we make determinations. Is it okay for us to not consider this accusation in this case because it's related to a towing company, and yet it's okay for us to consider accusations when it's related to a liquor license? Maybe nobody else sees the inconsistency in our thought processes, but I do. But that's your choice to make. But I'm not keeping up with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hug.
Mr. Harding, I'm struggling to get to your vision of this because there is one consistency here, is it does involve the same company. Towing's towing, whether you're towing impound vehicles or whether you're towing a cruiser that's got a flat tire up on I-80. And I think that we as an elected body have an obligation to our constituents to make sure that we are contracting with the best contractors we can contract with. And I think we just need to give this some time to let the air clear. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's our obligation to approve the contract. And in order to do that, in good conscience, I want to know that we're picking the best vendor. And if there's any questions out there, I think we should get those questions answered. And that's why I'm supporting laying it over. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hardy.
Mr. Stubbe.
Bob Stubbe, Public Works.
So this went through the proper bidding process?
That is correct.
How many bids were submitted?
One.
And was it compliant?
Yes.
Has this group done work for us in the past?
Yeah, they've had this contract for a number of years.
Have they performed well? Or
Yes.
how have they performed? I won't lead the witness. How have they performed?
This contractor has absolutely complied with the provisions of the contract that we previously had. This current contract is expired, so this contractor is holding the prices from the previous contract until we get this contract approved.
Okay. That's how I got to my decision, Mr. Hugg.
Thank you. There's no further lights, but Deputy Chief, since we did address this issue earlier in the meeting, I know it's of concern to people. I think there's an update on the shooting victim at Northwest High School, if you want to share with that.
Yes, thank you, President Festerson. I just want to let everyone know that the 15-year-old child that you spoke about at the beginning of the meeting has been upgraded to stable condition, so that's great news.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. There's no further lights on this item. There is a motion and a second to lay over until October 22nd. Roll call.
Harding. No. Hug.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Yes. Bagley. Aye. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-1.
Thank you. The public hearings on agenda items 39 through 60 are today. If you wish to address the council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, identify yourself by name, address, and who you represent, and if you are a proponent or an opponent. These are items 39 through 60. And I'll note for council members, we do have Melody and Cragen by Zoom if needed for items 40 through 44. Go ahead.
Larry Store, 515 Lafayette, Omaha, 68132. I would just like a little bit of quick discussion on 45 and 46 to clarify for me, since I didn't get all my homework done, why we're having maybe to invest in washing services in the Park Omaha garages. Can we not take your cars to other commercial car washes, some in North Omaha, for example? Or is this for washing the cement driveways down? It doesn't say anything about that. It just says washing services. That's a lot of money. Maybe it could be spent in the community. So, you know, please clarify, is that for washing the cars the city owns? Or for maybe city-owned garages, letting the citizens drive through there to get a car wash? I don't know. Please explain.
Any other testifiers on these items? Seeing none, public hearing's closed.
And I'll second that, but real quick, I just wanted to let you know, it's to clean the garages. Nobody's getting a free car wash, and we have to clean the garages. It's part of the maintenance of the building.
Okay.
Okay, I just thought I'd let you know that.
Thank you. And then I had one question for Mr. Curtis. That's similar to the conversation we had this morning. Just wanted to reaffirm it here at the 2 o'clock. On number 60, I think this is a procedural vote we're having today to approve the ARPA funding and the general ARPA budget of the approximately $112 million that was distributed and allocated throughout the city of Omaha. The one specific question I had this morning I just wanted to engage you on was, previously we have announced and committed $2 million to BIDs that qualified throughout the city. And although that's been, I know, a challenging program of work, we now have contracted with, I think, all of them that were eligible to receive that funding to some extent for qualified expenses for products they were interested in pursuing. But knowing that that amounted to about 1.7 million rather than 2 million, I was previously told that the remaining 300,000 in that category could be used for unanticipated costs or contingency funding for those several projects, or potentially other eligible expenses they're pursuing that could be committed prior to the end of this year, which is when that needs to happen. So my only concern was, I know there are several of those projects that could still benefit from that funding and do still have eligible expenses that could be committed by the end of the year. So I didn't want to see that $300,000 just swept into essentially the general fund, the $45 million that we call city recovery. So my question to you that we discussed this morning is just, although if this is approved today, this is an update to your procedural requirements under that grant, but it doesn't mean the previously committed $300,000 couldn't still be used for those projects. Is that an accurate representation?
Steve Curtis, City Finance. So remember that we're under an obligation with the federal government to make sure we do this reporting and get it approved by the proper body, which in this case is you, this council. If you remember the way that program worked for BIDs, we had the 2 million, we divided it by the 7 eligible BIDs, and it came to about 285,000 each. And the decision was made that each BID should be capped at 285. And at least 2 and maybe 3 of the BIDs came in with something less than 285. For those that did come in at 285, we were able to manage those primarily through Public Works. For instance, it would be lighting from OPPD, so we were able to manage those to 285. What we were holding this last 300 for was for those who hadn't spent their whole 285, if the approved projects that they were working on came in as they finish up the budgeting or the bidding for those, which is still underway for a couple of them, we wanted to make sure we had some money that was still set aside that they could access. So to your point, we couldn't necessarily leave it where it was because we're running out of time, as you well know, to have it committed by 12/31. And we got a little nervous just getting a budget in and approved, and thought it'd be prudent to go ahead and put it into rehiring with the understanding that if one of the eligible projects or anything else, I guess for that matter, if it's eligible, it would still be accessible through this mechanism. So it is still available through 12/31/24.
Okay. So should the council, and I presume the administration agree, the $300,000 previously designated to BIDs could be still appropriated to those projects, I guess, through a council action of some kind?
Yes.
Okay. What would that be, a resolution or some kind of appropriation, or how would that work?
Probably a resolution, but I'd have to defer to law.
Okay. I think Matt has left the building, or at least not in the meeting here, but that's the information I wanted to confirm just on the record with you, and I can follow up with him on that. Okay, I don't see any further lights on these items, which are 39 through 60. There was a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Harding. Yes. Hug. Yes. Johnson. Yes. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 61, an ordinance to approve a major amendment to a mixed-use district development agreement for West Point located at 15504 Spalding Plaza to allow a kennel as a permitted use. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend denial.
The vote on item number 61 is today. This would require 4 council members to approve. Ms. Belton, you're recognized.
Thank you. And Mr. Reinhardt, could you come up? You'll have to state your name and address for the record.
Yep, Derek Reinhardt, 18932 Nicholas Street.
Okay, thank you. And also, thank you for sitting through this extra long council meeting. I'm sorry that you're close to the end.
It was interesting, though. So.
Okay, well.
That's way more important stuff than mine, so.
Well, you know what? I think what you're doing is important. It's important to a lot of people. I've talked to a lot of people, know a lot of people that use your facility. Again, you are a business owner that at least your business has been there 17 years. There's never been one complaint in the 11 and a half years that I've been on council. And I know you and I spoke, we have spoken since the last meeting and it was brought up. What I would like to do is I'm going to make a floor amendment when we pass this, that this will only apply to you. So if you sell the property, this zoning waiver will not go with the property.
Okay, that makes sense.
And I think you said that you would agree to that. Is that correct?
Yep, not trying to set any precedents.
Okay. And I think the important thing. I understand planning. I understand even my colleagues that say never in a mixed use, like we can't do this. I think you have an exceptional kind of story behind yours, and all of the other doggy daycares, so to speak, all got waivers from the Zoning Board of Appeals. After our last meeting, I actually spoke with Jeremy Aspen, who was going to try and make it down here, but from our Zoning Board of Appeals, but I think, it's been 3.5 hours and we have had to take care of the girls. But he kind of talked about this is kind of a rare exception because we used to just have kennels. This is the type of business that I think has evolved. And it may be that we still don't allow them in mixed use areas moving forward if you have any kind of outdoor area. But I would say based upon your circumstances and the fact that we're going to limit it to just you, or at least that would be my vote, that this will kind of be an exception to the rule and that we're not setting any precedent for it. And I think you also agreed in your other Dogtopias, or at least one of them, the one off center, you agreed that you would limit any dog that went outside, it would be 20 minutes or less.
Yep, about 3 times a day for a bathroom break, for morning, lunch, and then evening.
Okay.
Yep.
And you don't have multiple dogs out there barking and left out there?
No, not overnight.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And I'm not going to rehash kind of all my arguments that I made last week because I think all of my colleagues heard the arguments and it's about 5:30. So I am asking for your support. I see that there's a light on, but Mr. Kuzi, I would like to make a floor amendment to amend this to be applicable as to the property owner.
Matt Kuzi Law Department. I'm stalling because Muni Code's not loading really quick. I just want to make sure that we can
Well, you know what?
make such an amendment on a mixed-use district. I know for special use permits, we can. What are you showing?
How about this? While you're looking for that, I see that Councilman Hug's light's on, and maybe I'll yield the floor to Mr. Hug.
And I'll be more than willing to give it back to you, council member. If we can't amend it, I think we could accept a letter from you, giving us your word that you would, if you do sell it, you would make sure that people understood that city council giveth, city council can taketh away.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm stalling to give them a guy's time.
Yeah, that's okay. Can we got an update on the volleyball game?
It's an exception. You know, I've toiled with this in my head, but I'm sympathetic that I believe that to some extent you're probably a victim. And I could see very clearly how if you bought an existing business that's had several previous owners and has been there for a number of years, you know, doing your due diligence, something like this could fall through the cracks. It doesn't mean by any stretch of the imagination if somebody were to come before us with a similar situation, whether it be a liquor store or a facility such as yours, that we would respond in kind, as I don't believe we would. So, for lack of a better way to say it, I think you're going to get lucky today. And how long can I keep talking?
You're saying good things. Just keep going.
All right.
Yep, you're good. Mr. Harding, you're
Mr. Harding.
recognized.
Mr. Reinhardt, thanks. A couple of questions for you. I think at the last time we met, I'd asked you about when you purchased, first you purchased the business, I believe, and then you purchased the building. Is that correct?
Yes.
So there was some time in between?
Yeah, I think 2 years.
Oh, okay. So, okay. When you purchased the building, I'll assume that you probably had a bank involved or a lender involved?
Yes.
Okay. And I would also assume then you probably had a title commitment done on the property, title insurance?
Yeah, of course.
Was there nothing in the title report? I think I kind of brought this up the last time. I don't know if you went back and checked afterwards. Was there anything in that title report that talked about the zoning and the uses that are allowed within that zoning?
I have not reviewed that. I've bought numerous buildings. I've never reviewed that, to be honest, unless they point out specifically if there's something wrong. Otherwise, they just call it like a clear title. It's usually what I get told, so I don't really ever look at those reports.
Okay. Tell me about your location at 144th and Center. I guess I must have missed that last time. How is that one operated? Is it similar? I mean, is there an outdoor area for that one?
Yes, there is. That's the one we did get a use waiver.
You got a waiver on that one?
Yep.
So that was in a area that had probably some sort of industrial zoning?
I believe it's CC.
It was CC?
Yep. Yeah. That's what I believe that one is.
Okay, because I know our baseline zoning for a mixed-use development is usually kind of CC, is usually kind of the baseline of, and then you kind of move up and down from that of what's allowed and what's not within the mixed-use district.
Okay, yeah.
Now I'm going to vamp a little, but while I'm vamping, because I don't know if they're done having their conversation, maybe because, well, I was going to say maybe because you are, maybe what we should do is lay this over so that we're not making kind of the, okay, if you're comfortable with it, but I was going to suggest laying this over, but I'm not going to make that motion if you think you have what you need, but I'm very sympathetic to the issue here, and I would say, I know it's not your business model, but this is, you know, if it doesn't pass, I wouldn't say that it's necessarily telling you to shut down your business. You could still operate with indoor facilities. I know you'd probably have to make some modifications to your facility in order to do that. But I know the others went through the waiver process and they were allowed to, and maybe because it was zoned, your other location at 144th and Center was not in a mixed use district, it was just in a CC zoned district and not a mixed use district. Maybe that's why it was able to go through the waiver process, but you can't go through the waiver process through Zoning Board of Appeals since it's in the mixed use agreement, right, and have to come to us as a major amendment to the mixed use agreement, which is what you're doing.
Right.
Again, I understand the others and the processes that they had to go through to get those waivers or those approvals. But I know this is a little different because it's in a mixed use district, and because the other operators within that mixed use district, when they purchase those properties within that district or have their businesses within that district, knowingly or not, kennels were not allowed under the current definition of the kennels. And I will say, I fully suspect and would encourage going forward that because this business has involved, not yours specifically, right, but generally, that type of business, I think, needs to be redefined. But again, I don't think it's probably going to end up in a mixed use allowed in a mixed use district generally. In CC and below, or probably more industrial, like light industrial down, it probably would be as a use by right going forward, but we're not to that point yet. So I do have concerns about it, and I'm not sure I'm there yet to say, you know, I'm going to grant the waiver. I'll be interested to hear if the reason I went over to Councilmember Melton a few minutes ago was she initially said the property. I suggested if they're going to do something like that, I'd say the property and the business, if that's going to be one of the restrictions. But I'll wait and hear what they came up with.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Melton.
Yes, thank you. I would like to do a motion to amend the mixed use agreement in number 3. I'm going to ask Mr. Kuzi to give me to read the exact language, but what I would like is that the gist of it is that this waiver shall be applicable, or this shall only apply to the current property and business owner. And I think we actually put Derek Reinhardt in there.
Okay, sounds good.
But correct. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask our esteemed Mr. Kuzi to give me suggested language and that I would like to incorporate into my motion.
Okay.
This will be the motion that Mancusi Law Department. This will be the motion. Oh no. Well, because it's like 5:30, my computer has just powered down. I take no responsibility for that happening. I'm not saying who should. I'm just saying I'm not taking responsibility for that. I do have the language, but it is gone. But it would be, if I can, I don't have the ordinance now in front of me.
I do. So I would like.
Basically, Councilwoman Melton would be asking for a motion to amend Ordinance 43946 to amend the amendment to development agreement to conclude a condition number, to add a condition number 3 that this mixed-use district development would only run with the owner of the business, or excuse me, yes, the owner of the business and not with the land pursuant to the ordinance for mixed-use developments, which, as I said, is no longer in front of me.
As previously stated. Second.
Is that your motion, Ms. Melton?
That is my motion. I have a question for the clerk.
What?
Can I change his notarized?
As long as he is,
Okay.
is this him?
Yes, this is Derek and that's it.
We
Okay.
probably have to re-sign it, but if he would agree to it on the record, I think that's also sufficient.
Okay, if you would agree to it on the record, what I think we're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to produce that same amendment, just add number 3, and then we'll have to have you re-sign it.
Oh, the one I filled out previously?
Right.
Okay. And if this helps my casing, I do want to mention, that was never my intention with all this process that happened with other places getting tattled on, but I'm not trying to be a full kennel according to the zoning laws. That's just, there's only 2 options. It's either completely indoor or completely outdoor. Or kennel's actually either or, but there's no middle ground of pet services being able to let dogs out for a certain period of time for bathroom breaks. But people can have dogs in their backyards and all through neighborhoods. I can walk the dog around the property on a leash. So it's really just for a bathroom break. Otherwise, they are inside a lot of the time. I mean, Nebraska doesn't get great weather a lot. So it's really like a quick 20-minute bathroom break, 30 minutes in the morning, lunch, and then evening. And then they're inside all through the night. So we usually close up shop around 8. So they're not like a noise issue or anything like that overnight.
Now, I would agree. If there was going to be a complaint, I would hear about it, and I haven't heard one complaint. And again, I've just heard from people that actually use your services and think you do a great job and take great care of the dogs. So I know you're not leaving them out for long periods of time, and they're not out there barking and disturbing neighbors. So that's why I'm willing to make this exception for you, and I don't believe we're setting any precedent. And it's something that we should talk about in our next master plan. So I'm going to encourage you to go fill out the survey that the planning department has out there, because you may want to put something like this in with your input for as we're going and revising our master plan.
Okay.
So I think there's a motion and a second.
You tell me.
Okay, I made the motion. I think Ron seconded it.
Okay.
I have not heard Derek say yes.
Oh, he did.
Oh.
Okay. Well, you will. We're going to amend, number 3. So this this waiver only applies to you as the owner and business owner.
Yes, correct.
So it's property and business.
Yep, I can amend that.
And you're gonna sign it and change it and get it in, and you agree?
Yes.
Okay.
Agreed.
I'm good.
All right, there is a motion and a second. And then,
Please clarify what the motion is.
okay, Mr. Kuzi or Ms.
I will. It's a motion to amend the agreement. It's an amendment to the development agreement. And if you go down, it says, now therefore, the following is agreed between the parties hereto. Number 1, kennel use is added as permitted in use on lot 4. Replat 2. Then there's number 2, Exhibit B to the original agreement is hereby amended by the attached Exhibit B, replat 2, lot 4. I'm asking to amend this to add a number 3, and that the waiver for kennel use on this property shall be limited to the business owner and property owner, Derek Reinhardt, and that's DERRICK, Reinhardt, REINHART.
Okay.
Is that sufficient, Mr. Kuzi?
Matt Kuzi, Law Department. It is, I think the only thing I will add when I provide the paper copy of the motion to the clerk for the journal will include the ordinance that I'm referring to for mixed-use developments or mixed-use districts.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Harden, you're recognized.
Sure, 2 questions.
One, is this the only property within that mixed-use district?
Dave Fanslow, City Planning, you're looking at me, is it the
I
only?
will, what's it?
No, is it the only property within the mixed-use district? No,
Yeah,
there's
okay.
multiple properties within that mixed-use district.
Are there requirements or for the others within that district to agree to such amendment?
It's a good question. I don't know. We usually, That's a good question. If they were separate owners, they were notified of this hearing, just like we notify for all the other cases. And we didn't get any opposition at planning board. But you're right, so is whoever's the holder maybe of the original agreement, have they opined on this situation? Not that I'm aware.
And then I'll take one more dive then. Are there covenants and restrictions with this mixed use? There's nothing, I don't have the copy of the original mixed use agreement, so I don't know if there are any CC&Rs on that.
Well, there wouldn't, I mean, as you know, the city's not party to any
No,
covenants.
that's true.
But,
That's true.
But, I mean, yeah, the original mixed-use development agreement would have laid out the allowed uses, the design regulations, floor area ratio, everything that we look at when we look at mixed-use development agreements. And the reason why this applicant's here now is because Kennels was not.
I bring this up, thank you, and I was sorry to interrupt, but I bring this up because I think before we move forward on amending this, I think we should fully understand whether or not those boxes have been checked. And therefore, if this amendment or as amended fails, I will bring up a motion to lay over to find out the answers to those questions. And before I have those answers, I guess I'm going to be voting no.
I am struggling with this one too. I agree with the notion that, you know, this business is evolving in society and where it's located and how people treat it, and it is needed. And you're certainly in an unusual situation where you've been operating, and I think operating well. But it is non-conforming, and that's why we're here, and so that's difficult. Mr. Kuzi, my question on the floor amendment is, if that's adopted, then there also has to be a second vote as adopted, correct?
Yes. Sorry, Macusi Law Department, yes.
It's like I'm at the point where I think the floor amendment does make it better, but I'm not sure I'm at the point where I'm saying it's okay. So that's why I'm asking. Okay, that was my question. Mr. Hardy. Yep.
Along those lines, because I was exactly there with you. I kind of said that to Don, that I was probably going to vote for the amendment, but not as amended. But then when I started thinking about some of those other questions about whether or not we can actually do this without checking some of those other boxes, I think I've gotten to the point. And again, Derek, I know you run a great operation. Hey, I take mine to one that had to get a waiver too. So I know this is something that we need to change and need to address. But again, because I want to make sure I don't want to leave the opportunity for someone to come in after our action here and say we did it incorrectly. So if you move forward with the amendment and as amended, great. But again, I don't think I'm going to be there today.
And the other thing I would add is that, as a general rule, after having done this for about 16 years, when something is this hard to talk through, it's usually better to take your time and or not do it today. But that's my last remark. Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Yeah, if I could. And Mr. Reinhardt, maybe so that we get the language correct, Mr. Kuzi gets the ordinance numbers correct. I know I can't assure you that this isn't going to be another 3-hour meeting next Tuesday, but I might be able to ask council to pull this one up first at our next meeting, since it's 6 o'clock. I will ask that next Tuesday. I think what I would be more comfortable with, to ensure that you don't get voted down today,
Yeah, I agree.
is that all the documents are correct. Maybe we can get a new agreement signed, notarized with the correct language, have the correct ordinance in there. And then perhaps Mr. Harding would be able to, I might be able to get him some better answers than I could give him today. I have some thoughts, but I'm not going to put it on the record of what I think the answers are. I'd rather try and determine what the right answer is, make sure your paperwork is correct, and then bring it back. So I'm going to withdraw my amendment. You'll withdraw your second, I assume. Thank you, Ron. And then I'm going to do a motion to lay this over for 1 week, and I will be requesting that we call it up at 2 o'clock next week based upon your sitting here. If that time works, I can do it in 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. just check my calendar quick.
Yes, yeah, I don't mean to put you.
Nope, I'm good.
So it would be a layover until the 17th.
No, I think that's good. Obviously, losing one vote, you already say you'd say no, unless there's 4 of you that will say yes.
Yeah.
But I don't want to lose 1 out of 7 votes because he doesn't have all the information.
Right.
I think it's clear what we're trying to do here, and it does need to be done right. I just want to pull at your guys' heartstrings a little bit. It seems like a little thing you mentioned about you could bring it inside. It's not that simple. Parents don't. Dog owners don't. Dog parents don't like that. The facilities usually just can't handle that cleanly. Like I said, it's a quick going out to the bathroom. So hopefully we can get this done right and not set anything going forward.
No, I agree. Thank you. And with that, I think I'll do my motion to lay over till the 17th.
Okay, there was a motion to lay over to
Second.
the 17th,
Oh.
and there was a second.
Oh, sorry.
I don't see any further lights, right? Okay. Roll call.
Harding. Hug. Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
All right, let's vote the same way next time.
Thank you.
I
We will put it up front.
Yeah.
What's that?
We will get it up front for you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Well, and actually, you know what? Why don't you, if you could, call my office so that we can maybe get that, and you can come down ahead of time so we can make sure we have it notarized and the correct agreement attached, maybe before Thursday. So why don't we touch base tomorrow?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Item 62, a resolution to approve the appointment of Stephen Jensen to the Omaha Streetcar Authority Board of Directors.
Public hearing and vote on number 62 is today. Proponents, please.
Luis Jimenez, 2709 Dewey Avenue. If I understand this right, you have to replace Mr. Stubbe on the Streetcar Authority Board because he has a conflict of interest based on contracting or money, based on money. And so the replacement would be Steve Jensen. And I've met Mr. Jensen a few times. In one instance, when he was supporting the streetcar at a public meeting, and at a community meeting, excuse me. And he mentioned, so from what he said, he seemed like a great advocate for the streetcar. He said that the TIF financing is not debt for the city, but I disagree with that. If a redeveloper uses the streetcar, they assume debt. So if the city uses bonds for the streetcar redevelopment TIF project, it would be debt for the city, but it's being financed through the bonding scheme. Outside of that, he's a very nice guy. And one last thing is that because of the things that have transpired the last few days, I have a quick prayer for you, for this group. May Christ shield you in all your ways.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Louise. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Is Mr. Jensen here today? Okay, I will not be able to support this because I'm not able to apply due diligence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
There's a motion to approve in a second. No further lights. Roll call.
Harding. Hug. Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-1. Item 63, an ordinance to acquire private property for the Bensonville Acres Street Improvement Phase 2 project.
Public hearing on number 63 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 64, an ordinance to approve vacating an irregular portion of right-of-way located at the northeast corner of 8th Street and Riverfront Drive. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing on number 64 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 65, an ordinance to approve a purchase from Axon Enterprise, Inc. for 20 licenses to Justice Premier for the City of Omaha Law Department Prosecution Division.
Public hearing on number 65 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Non-action items, items 66 through 103, do not require public hearing or city council consideration at this meeting, but will be placed on a future agenda after the item on the agenda, as well as the date the item is expected to appear on agenda for consideration.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Hug. Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Meeting is adjourned at 5:54.
Thank you.